Live from the virtual Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, we say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Podium Esports' coverage of the 2021 Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl. We're happy that you're hanging out with us and spending a Wednesday evening with us here on RaceBot TV and iRacing Live. We're alongside our producer Ryan Bauer, our pit reporter Justin Prince, Jesse Wuji, and James Pike. My name is Evan Pasoka. We're happy to be back with more ERA action, and tonight it is for a challenge unlike any other. Jesse, we've seen two of these thus far, a short track race late last year at Nashville. Earlier this year for the Spring Bowl, we went racing at the World Center of Racing in Daytona Beach, Florida, but we have yet to see these drivers tackle the road course, and tonight going to be a lot of fun as we get these big old NASCAR Cup Series stock cars out to COTA.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty fun with these cars out there. And COTA is definitely a difficult track, that's for sure, with all the different corners and NASCAR never really ever being at this track before. It's definitely something new, definitely something exciting for these drivers. And that's why we chose this track as our third track of the year to actually come out and race at. Now, or second track of the year. Now, with it being a road course, it obviously has its difficulties. A lot of these drivers are used to the oval tracks, and now they get to figure out how to turn left and right, and we're going to see how well they do it tonight. But there's a lot of skilled drivers in this field, a lot of them who are iRacing pros, so we'll see how they do and how they fare against some of the other drivers here who sometimes aren't pros, who maybe don't make that roster, but are still very good, very talented, and we're going to see a widespread of talent, a widespread of skills throughout this entire night.
I think aside from maybe practice for some of the upcoming stuff on the service, James, or even practice for this event, I'm guessing a lot of people in the field here don't have a ton of time in a NASCAR stock car at a Formula One built track in the middle of Texas, right? But I think that's what makes it such a fun combination. These are the current generation NASCAR Cup cars. This will be a great preview for what we're going to see with the likes of the Pro Invitational Series just down the road. But these cars are not made for a track like this. Vice versa, this track ain't made for these kind of cars. That's what I think the best part about this event here tonight is it is going to be a challenge. These guys are going to have to work hard for their part of a $5,000 purse on the line.
It is a bit of a square peg going into a round hole, this combination, because you're right. This is a track that is primarily designed with Formula One cars, open wheel cars, sports cars in mind, and not necessarily the stock cars that you're going to see this evening. But like you also pointed out, if you like Circuit of the Americas, this is going to be a great month for you on iRacing, because you're going to have the Coke Series there next week. You're going to have the Pro Invitational Series there next week. You're going to see it in official racing. So I think the neat thing about this EPM Summerbowl for the Omega Cup is that you're going to see some of the top names in sim racing and some folks who are probably going to compete for victories over the course of the next week in tonight's race. So everybody watching tonight, I think, might be able to learn a little something, and these drivers are just the first guinea pigs that get to go out and test this track and get a feel for it. I think a lot of folks are going to be able to watch what they do, hopefully apply it to their races later on in the month, and maybe come away with some checkered flags at the end of it all.
You should be no excuse by the time the actual NASCAR race weekend gets there to COTA that you're not familiar with this circuit, because there's tons of action coming up here on iRacing. And Jesse, we talk about this being the third event, right? Your reference to the Winter Bowl race where we went short track racing at the Nashville Fairgrounds. Of course, the Spring Bowl, we went to a big super speedway in Daytona. So this is a new challenge, but not a new setting, if you will, for ERA as you guys continue to build the brand of giving away more than $20,000 to date. So it's a challenge. It's a sim race. These guys are going to have fun, but let's not get it twisted. They're not here just for bragging rights. They've got a serious prize on the line tonight.
Yeah, they definitely have a serious prize, that's for sure. $5,000 on the line. With $5,000 on the line, a lot of these drivers are going to be fighting for it. And here on a road course, especially a place like COTA, there's a lot of different corners where you're going to see a lot of great battles. There's a lot of slow speed corners, and that's typically where you're going to see fighting. When drivers are fighting back and forth, you're going to see a lot of different lead changes here, I think, with the skills that we have, with the skilled drivers that we have racing tonight. All the different things you're going to see at this track. It's going to be new to a lot of the fans because they've never really seen NASCAR race at this particular track, but at the same time too, it's going to provide a lot of excitement for us, for them. And I think at the end, we were probably going to be surprised on who actually ends up taking this win, but I'm excited for it. $5,000 on the line. That's a lot of money for these drivers because in sim racing, it's still wild, wild west. You don't see a lot of big money, prize money type events out there, and we're one of the few who's actually making it happen. So I'm pretty excited that we're able to make it happen. Big thanks to our sponsor EPM for helping us get out here on the track tonight.
And that's why you're going to get, James, to your point, the best of the best, right? I mean, this is a track you talk about other places where NASCAR goes. Cup racing, that's an evolving landscape. We're going to talk to some drivers who are going to be racing here in just a moment, but this is a big track compared to a Watkins Glen or a Sonoma. 20 turns, plenty of opportunities to make mistakes. It'll be a balance, I think, drivers racing the track, try to not make mistakes, but also dealing with all of the traffic out there as well, right? I think those are going to be some key points to look at this evening. Well, let's continue on with our pre-race coverage. We talk about some of those events from earlier in the year. Let's talk with your Spring Bowl winner, Mike Sturgell, who took home the checkered flag back in February for the virtual Daytona International Speedway. Mike, you with us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, hey, thanks for jumping in and talking with us here pre-race on our Equity Prime Mortgage pre-race show. This is a different challenge, but let's talk COTA in a minute. First, take us back to that Spring Bowl race at Daytona. That one came all the way down to the stripe, just held on to take the checkered flag.
Yeah, found myself up front there towards the end, and on that final restart, I had Torres behind me. We had worked out a little deal with each other, so I had faith he'd stay with me, and luckily for me, he did, and we took that one home.
Took away $4,000 that time out, and taking a look at the car on the right-hand side. I can see you've kept the check in the background as well, so well staged on that one. I don't think you can get very different when you compare a cup race at Daytona to a cup race here at COTA. So what's the prep process been like? I'm sure you've gone through the motions that basically everybody on the sim and in real life has done with a new track coming onto the NASCAR calendar where we really haven't seen this before, and just trying to get some practice in. What are your thoughts on this racetrack maybe compared to some of the other road races where we're more used to seeing these cars?
Yeah, this track is really, really technical. I don't do too bad at like Daytona Road Course or the Roval, but this is just a way different animal. It's a lot harder, so I've just been practicing as much as possible and trying to get used to it.
You're kind of middle of the road right now through the practice session, 14th on the practice charts out of 36 drivers. And I mean, there's big names in this, right? A handful of drivers for the likes of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series and others. That's going to kind of put you middle of the chaos. How worried are you about turn one? And with this being a 40-lap race, I mean, that's a pretty healthy margin, more than 50% of the distance of what we'll see for the Cup race here in a couple of weeks. How are you going to have to approach this race to find success?
Yeah, turn one's probably going to be pretty wild that first lap, so hoping just to make it through there clean, and then really the goal for the race tonight for me is just keep it on track, keep it as clean as possible, and hope that others make mistakes.
And I think that's going to be an important thing right there. We were just talking about that a few minutes ago. There's so many places for guys to make mistakes. Strategy-wise, this is a race that could go green all the way, but race control has said, listen, if 3+ cars are wanted it up, we will throw a full course caution. That could easily happen, turn one, lap one. It could happen kind of in the middle of the run. From a strategy standpoint, how are you going to approach this race? Is it a good idea to kind of go with the status quo, pit towards the halfway point if nothing's crazy? Or maybe is there an advantage to trying to get away from some of these other guys and go off cycle?
I think if it stays green, probably just going to stick with cutting it halfway. Because I think we get about 21, 22 laps worth of fuel. So hoping it stays green, hoping I can just come in halfway and the field, spreads out a little bit with, little races going on between 2-3 guys through the field.
I'll give you your chance to call your shot here. Where is that number 3 car going to come home tonight? What do you feel you got in it?
I'm really hoping for a top 5 out of it, but I think we might be able to manage at least a top 10.
We're looking forward to this one. We already mentioned it. Your race winner from earlier this year in the Spring Bowl at the virtual Daytona International Speedway. Mike, best of luck in this one. What we got you the broadcast? Anybody you want to say hi to?
Say hi to my parents, the rest of my family, all my friends watching. I made a post on Facebook and Instagram and try to get a bunch of people to tune in. So if any of y'all are watching, hi and wish me luck.
I'll tell you what, if a good-looking race car translates to speed, you're going to be well off tonight, Mike. Appreciate you jumping in and chatting. Good luck.
Thank you.
So that is your Spring Bowl winner from earlier this year, Mike Sturgell, one of two race winners already this year in the EPM Omega Cup Series. Of course, the Area Omega Cup Series brought to you by EPM. Parker Retzlaff was the other winner who won at the Nashville Fairgrounds back in December for the inaugural race in the Winter Bowl. And somebody else who's going to be on track here tonight, NASCAR driver Anthony Alfredo, and Jesse's on the mic with him now.
Mr. Anthony Alfredo, how is it going today during this practice for you?
Going all right, Jess. Getting a few laps here. I've been fortunate to make some in the Ford Performance Simulator as well, because we're actually racing here in real life next weekend and have the Pro Invitational event as well. So I'd reached out to you. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to compete tonight, because it's great practice, extra laps, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it.
That's most definitely for sure. And yeah, thank you so much. Jumping into our ERA event, it's pretty cool to have you in here, to have a Cup Series driver with all your experience between trucks, Xfinity, even when you're running K&N, ARCA, all that stuff. You have a ton of experience through a lot of different series. You've run a lot of different tracks, but you haven't ever run COTA. How is this track? How is it as a driver, especially at least in the sim world?
It's really fun. I think the coolest part about it is obviously the fact that Formula One races here with a lot of other series, and for us to go here for the first time ever is really cool. It's going to be a historical event. Going to be so exciting for all the fans, the drivers, the teams, and here on the sim, I think the fact that this is the first big event on it in the Cup cars is pretty neat. It's definitely a challenge as far as a driver standpoint. There's a lot of different sections that are all totally different from one another. I almost feel like each section of this track are bits and pieces of different road courses all slammed together into one. So it's not easy. It's super easy to slip up and make a mistake just because you have to attack each side of the track completely differently. And it's definitely going to keep everyone on their toes tonight. So you're going to have to stay focused for the whole time and make sure that you don't make any mistakes so you have a shot at it at the end.
Focus is definitely key, that's for sure. This track is definitely difficult. I've tried to make some laps around it over the last few days, and every time I jump on, it's frustrating. So I'm like, wow, this track is difficult. This is not easy at all. I'm used to the Sonomas, I'm used to the Watkins Glens, I'm used to some of the other tracks, even Road America. I love Road America on the sim, but man, COTA is definitely difficult, but it's a good learning experience, that's for sure. Now, you're a big advocate for iRacing and sim racing in general. You have some pages that people follow. Everyone knows you on the sim. How has iRacing and just sim racing in general helped you in your racing career in real life?
Huge role in my career ever since I started racing, mainly because of what the sim has to offer. It's a legitimate training tool for us drivers to not only get visuals for tracks, but obviously feel where each and every bump is and added laps in whatever car we might be driving. And I think it also allows you to become a more diverse driver because you have the opportunity to race in all different disciplines of racing on the sim. Now, as of late, it's played an even more pivotal role than ever before because we don't have any practice or qualifying, and that was both last year when I was competing in the Xfinity Series part-time as well as this year as a full-time Cup Series driver. I've relied heavily on my SimSeats driving simulator with my D-Box haptics and iRacing itself to get these added laps and prepare for each event because it's pretty much as good as it gets until the green flag flies in real life.
I can definitely understand that. That's for sure. Even last year when I made my first Xfinity start at Road America, I had never been to the track before, never ran it before, never driven an Xfinity car, never even sat in an Xfinity car. And all of a sudden I'm jumping into a race there in the rain and competing in my first Xfinity race. But thanks to iRacing, just sim racing in general, it helped me get ready for that. So I definitely can understand that for sure. Now, you're a driver who has had the opportunity to jump into Ford's simulator in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you also have your sim at home. How do those two compare? Are they close together? Do you see the similarities in there, or are they vastly different?
Pretty different just because I'd say the Ford Sim is a lot more advanced in the sense that there's been a lot more R&D and data put into it from the more private side of things, obviously for the Ford teams trying to get ahead of the game and advance their setups and the physics behind it. It's pretty legit. You're strapping into basically the actual cockpit of a car, seatbelts on, in the full containment seat and all that. So this is is more of a scaled down version of that I have here, and it's still pretty serious for sure. But it's a whole different ball game. It's definitely that next step as far as the supplemental training for the real world. So it really doesn't get any better other than iRacing, though, especially for a consumer product. I mean, to have, for the general public to have access to something like this, I tell people all the time that not only is this the closest thing to real life for that you can get easy access to, obviously, but it's actually a great way to get into racing just because of all the things you can learn on it.
That's definitely true. I think when I was first getting into racing back in 2015, before I jumped in a late model, I think I spent like 3 months on iRacing, just driving Irwindale Speedway in a late model every single day, trying to get thousands and thousands of laps before I actually jumped in a real car. And it helped because I was able to get there and run mid-pack. And I was like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing, and I'm running mid-pack. So I'm happy. But yeah, the sim racing definitely is helping a lot. But thank you so much for your time, Anthony. Looking forward to watching you race today. Good luck. Have fun. Keep it safe. Keep it clean. You'll do great out there. There's a lot of skilled drivers. I know you see them out there. Have fun, and let's see how it turns up at the very end of the race.
Good. Thank you so much.
Big thanks to Anthony for chatting. And by the way, I've noticed that he's been very careful, Jesse, to not put a practice lap down yet. So he is being very sneaky and close to his chest, I think, on what speed he's got here this evening. We'll continue with our pre-race conversations. And James, I'll hand things over to you now. You're talking with Devin Zimmerman.
We do indeed have Devin Zimmerman here in the booth with us. And Devin, I think you've got a really interesting story coming into this evening, because I don't think a lot of people realize, A, that you're part of Air Force Gaming, or B, I think more importantly, that Air Force Gaming is a thing. It's a new way for members of that branch of the military to connect. So just tell us a little bit more about what you all do at AFG and what that program is all about.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, Air Force Gaming, it's relatively new. About 86% of airmen and guardians, that's Air Force and Space Force, between the ages of 18 and 34 and identify as gamers. So they started Air Force Gaming as an initiative to help airmen of all ages, ranks, backgrounds, everything, kind of have a common goal through gaming, also promoting mental acuity, fine motor coordination, and competitive excellence. And it's also a great resilience tool, which is a big push in the Air Force and Armed Forces right now all over. Having that resilience to bounce back from bad situations that we are put in as we are serving the country. So it's a great way for all of us to kind of be together and have a common shared, thing that we all like to do. And iRacing, the iRacing team was founded by Master Sergeant Bass. He's not here tonight with us, though. He actually had some computer issues, so he wasn't able to make the qualifiers. But the other four of us made the feature. We're all excited to be here. We're all excited to finally represent. We were hoping to do so at Daytona, but it just wasn't to be. But yeah, for here, we're definitely excited. I think we're going to run well as a team. So yeah, hopefully you'll see these awesome paint jobs that the guys, you all at ERA made for us with the F-16 Thunderbirds. It's pretty awesome. So hopefully you'll see us up front. That'd be pretty cool.
About to say that's one of the best looking paint schemes I've seen in a car on a long time. So how cool is it to represent the Air Force in this way, especially during this month, because it is Military Appreciation Month, and we know that it's a significant month not only to the Air Force but to all branches of the military, and we know how big the connection is between Jesse, the Navy, and what that means to him. So to tie all that together tonight, what's that mean to you?
It means a lot. I definitely, want to represent the best of the, we want to put forth the best that the Air Force has. iRacing, all of us, there's some of us that have been in there a lot longer than others. I've only been on the service since March, and I just keep getting better and better. And this is a way for me to continue to do that. I may not be one of the fastest guys on the track tonight, but I'm definitely going to give it everything and learn as much as I can from the guys who are quite fast here. So, we're going to give it everything we got. It's awesome to represent as an Air Force ambassador to iRacing, and hopefully we can continue to do a lot more of these type of events, representing the Air Force and just putting forth, a good foot in the gaming community for the Air Force. And on behalf of Air Force Gaming, before we get too far along here, I just want to say thank you guys so very much for having us in the eRacing Association, and also thank you to all the broadcast guys. I know y'all are doing a great job. I watched the broadcast at Daytona, even though I didn't make it, and it was amazing production. So on behalf of Air Force Gaming, myself, Egg, Walsh, Matthews, and Bass, we just want to say thank you guys so very much.
Devin, thanks for the time. Best of luck to you this evening, and we'll see if you and your F-16 themed cars can fly to the front at Circuit of the Americas.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so very much.
I'll go ahead and see myself out of the puns, Evan. We haven't even gotten to the race. I'm already on a bad streak, so...
Hey, man, you can certainly do worse, so I'll take it. They're going to want to, I think, certainly do a flyby on the start of the race. These things are going to be up to speed. It might look like a flyby as they run off it into turn number 1 on that long front straightaway to get this one underway. We're going to go race it here in just a minute. Jesse, wanted to go back to you before we close out our pre-race coverage. And we have mentioned this Pro Invitational a few times, of course, and that's going to be racing here next week. But you're currently 2 for 2 on the fan vote, so you've been in on those races so far this year. Or are you taking notes on what we're going to see down here on track today? I know you'd love to get involved in that one as well.
I'm definitely taking notes, that's for sure. Yeah, Pro Invitational. I've been very fortunate and blessed enough to end up winning the fan vote twice, 2 times in a row for both the tracks that we ran at. I think one was Talladega and the other was Darlington. And we got to drive the Gen 7 cars for the first ones ever get to do it. So I was pretty excited about that. Big thanks to all the fans out there, all my supporters, everyone who voted. I mean, we had people from the military, all branches, friends, family. I have family in Nigeria, overseas. I have people out of this country who were voting for me. Everyone was really pulling together to make it happen, and it was just really awesome to get the opportunity to do that. But today, with our ERA event, EPM supporting us here, we have a lot of great racers on track today. Very skilled iRacing drivers. And as we're doing this broadcast, as I'm sitting there watching and talking about all these guys, I'm going to be taking some notes too, some mental notes on how to attack some of these corners, how to get through the race, how the tire wear is, all that stuff. Because here in about a week or so, we're going to be competing at this same track again if I can win this next fan vote. So I believe voting will start again here pretty soon, and this weekend fans will have an opportunity to vote again for me to try to put me in this race again. So hopefully we have a good turnout again. Hopefully we have a lot of fans voting. They can head to the same link that they've been using before to vote, and hopefully we can make our way in.
I think tonight going to be a great precursor to a fun couple of weeks here of racing at COTA on the service. But it's time to stop talking and time to put race cars on track. We're about set to go racing from Austin, Texas. Thanks for joining us for the ERA Omega Cup Summer Bowl pre-show, brought to you by Equity Prime Mortgage. We'll take an opportunity to step aside. When we come back, we're going racing from Circuit of the Americas. You're watching Podium Esports.
The EPM mission reads that we are a resource and voice for financial empowerment. The EPM vision, which is connected to the EPM way, is to continue to offer financial service, communication, and assistance to the communities we serve.
What makes us different is our loan officers. They care about the people. Our number one message in this company is the customer. Always do everything you can for that customer.
We as a staff work together as a team, and we also on one page, one goal, to know that the end goal is the other person, which is the home buyer.
The big thing that we want to do is provide financial empowerment to our consumers. The ramifications of not owning versus owning is very vast. So it's really about maximizing your earning potential to build wealth.
Our diversity, it's a large part of what sets us apart. And the way we look at business with an empathic approach, we do care.
I have grown up here. I've pretty much done almost every position here and have just grown and learned throughout the 10 years and been given tons of opportunity to advance. I can't tell you how much this place means to me.
My favorite part of EPM is the relationships that we build. I mean, I see my coworkers more than I even see my family throughout the week. So it's important that we have that relationship with each other. I know that I'm going to work hard with my coworkers, but I also know that I'm going to be able to have a fun time with them.
When you join EPM, it's like you're gaining a huge, giant family. The people here are just funny and amazing.
The 23 Fundamentals, or the EPM Way, is our new culture plan. They are led by great communication, ethics, morals. All in all, they make us better. They make us EPM. The idea of work and home is truly been blurred. So when our culture plan was created, we wanted to transcend just being in the office.
It's really about being a brotherhood, a sisterhood, but it's still all about one mission and one objective, is to make sure that we're not only leading to financial empowerment, but we're growing our communities, we're serving our communities, we're growing our individuals.
Most of the loans we're doing are for families. It's the biggest investment in their lives.
For me to know that every little part that goes into the end goal of home ownership makes a difference, and we're playing a big part of that for that prospective home buyer to have their future home.
There's certain programs that not every lender offers, and we try to offer as many of those programs as possible so anybody could kind of fit the mold with a program that we have and offer that to them so then they could get that purchase done and own a home.
You know, the gold standard is treat somebody how you would want to be treated. I think that's the way people would want to be treated best. They want to make sure that somebody's looking out for their best interest, not yours, not the company, not the industry. So you definitely got to put yourself in their shoes and empathize and make sure you're looking and more importantly, listening very, very generously to what they're saying and what they're trying to accomplish.
It feels amazing to know that my team and I were able to contribute to a prospective buyer having their home. And for that home buyer to finally walk into the doors and have their home is just amazing, and we contributed to that.
It gives you a sense of pride in what we're doing here and gratitude to be able to help out those people get things and achieve their goals as well.
A lot of people talk about care, and the only way to truly care is through showing action and showing what you're doing for them in that moment.
We're able to help people to achieve the American dream, which is home ownership. But it's not just home ownership. That's your home. That's your family. So generations can be there just by one impactful movement that we do.
From the virtual Circuit of the Americas, we are ready to go racing for the 2021 ERA Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl, and we're happy that you're strapped into the virtual seat and along for the ride with us for this special presentation of iRacing on Podium Esports. James Pike, Jesse Owuji, and myself, Evan Pasoko, up top of the broadcast booth on the call with you this evening. Justin Prince is joining us from Pit Road. Our producer Producer downstairs is Ryan Bauer, and a camera tonight courtesy of Dougie Beard. And Jesse, I'll go back to you first on this one. We've talked about it all in our pre-race show. $20,000 to date, $5,000 available tonight, but tonight is a brand new challenge for these ERA members and a sign of big things to come. A preview for a NASCAR Cup Series race here in a couple of weeks, maybe a preview of a race that you hope to be in with the Pro Invitational in a few.
Yeah, that's for sure. And hopefully we can make the Pro Invitational again. I had the fortunate blessing of being able to get voted in twice in a row. So I was very excited about that and got the opportunity to race. And we finished top 10 at the Darlington race last week. So that was pretty exciting. But today is about these drivers who are on track today at COTA, racing in our EPM Omega Cup Series Summerbowl. It's our first time we're putting on a Summerbowl, and we're doing it at a road course track. We've been doing the ovals for the last few events, and now we put on a road course track to mix things up. So we have a lot of great drivers, some of them in the Coca-Cola Series, drivers from non-Coca-Cola Series, drivers from all over iRacing coming together to compete today. $5,000 on the line. I'm pretty pumped to see how this one turns out. We have a lot of skilled drivers, a lot of drivers from different backgrounds, drivers who race only on the sim, drivers who race in real life. We even have a driver who races in the NASCAR Cup Series. So a lot of great stuff going on today. I'm pretty pumped about it, but it's going to be exciting today, and I'm looking forward to how everything turns out.
I'm seeing license classes on the sim from D class on the road to A class. So we have everybody here today. And Jesse, I want to jump back to you real quick. You talk about the ERA members, right? This is the members race. And I've seen that ERA logo not only on your car in the Pro Invitational Series, but on your car in real life NASCAR races as well. And I believe there were a bunch of ERA member names on your car just a couple of weeks back, which was one of the cool things you guys did to participate in these races.
Yeah, we got the opportunity in real life at multiple races, actually, be able to put our ERA members' names on the race truck. I've been racing in the NASCAR Truck Series this year, and for some of the races, what we've done is anyone who signed up as a member, currently as a member for ERA, we actually get their name, we put it on the bed of the truck. So we have quite a few of them on there, and what we typically do is get a nice little video of all the names on there, post it on social media so that these members can see, hey, even though I'm a member of ERA and I'm competing for prize money on all these different events, I also get the opportunity to be on a real life race truck in NASCAR on national TV, and that's pretty exciting for the members. So it's something we want to continue to do, throughout all the races that I have this year. Just a way we can really give back to our ERA members and just show them that, hey, we really appreciate them. We appreciate everything they do for us. We appreciate them being a member in ERA. So for those who aren't members right now, I say sign up. Go to eragaming.gg, sign up to be an ERA member and get the opportunity to compete for prize money on iRacing, and then also have your name on a real life race car in NASCAR.
I don't see any reason why not to, James. You get to do these major events here on Podium and iRacing, of course, some of the smaller events that they put on for their members as well, and you get to ride on a NASCAR Camping World truck. I think it's a pretty good deal, at least for tonight's challenge. Outside of this event, for the drivers, this is just generally a big challenge on the sim. These cars are tough to drive. This is a very technical track, so race-wise speaking, forget the prize money. From getting from point A to point B, going to be hard for some drivers.
In road course racing, and especially with the cars in the NASCAR Cup Series, I think you're racing the track more than you are the other drivers around you. Now, of course, you're going to have to navigate traffic in places and get around lap cars and make sure you don't get yourself into trouble. But if you focus on trying to beat the person in front of you or behind you, I think you've already lost the plot. Make sure you focus on racing the track first. Good things usually tend to follow.
Might back it up as well, almost, Jesse. Plan it in terms of, we heard a lot of drivers already talking about pitch strategy. They're probably going to play this one in reverse. What do I do early to set me up well for the end of this race?
That's definitely for sure. And yeah, as crew chiefs are going to be trying to figure out how we're going to set these drivers up for success. What are we going to do with tires? What are we going to do with fuel? What's that strategy? But it's new to everybody. No one's used to this track. It's a different track. We haven't really ever raced at COTA, like between real life and on the sim. So very new to everybody. It should be interesting to see what goes on. And now we have our national anthem, and it's going to be sung by Emerlyn Williams.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light. What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Just minutes away now from going to racing here from the virtual circuit of the Americas, James. And I mean, we talk about the uniqueness of this racetrack. It can fairly be said that, American road racing entered the 21st century with the debut of COTA back in 2012 as the host of the United States Grand Prix, the first facility in the United States designed specifically for Formula One. We've seen F1 races all over the United States at a host of different venues, but this racetrack, when it was announced in 2010, is an ambitious plan to build it in the middle of nowhere in Austin, Texas, in some undeveloped land. Was kind of a big statement as far as America getting involved in international motorsports, and I think the natural progression of that is what we're seeing here tonight. American NASCAR stock cars racing at a track that was designed for big open-wheel formula cars. I mean, it is really an interesting combination, but iRacing is the place where you could put those together, and I'm sure there's drivers that have raced in these cars before on this end, before it was even announced that NASCAR was going there, right? A lot of people just like to put together some fantasy combinations, but I mean, this is really a truly remarkable combo, and I think we're in for a great show.
It was always going to happen, I think, at some stage. You can't build a facility to FIA Grade 1 specifications and not end up having America's largest form of motorsport here in some way, shape, or form. Just took a little bit of time to figure out how it would fit into the schedule and how all parties could be involved and satisfied. So I'm excited to see what happens here tonight, what happens next week with the Coke Series race, the Pro Invitational Series, and then when we get to the Echo Park Grand Prix on the 23rd. It's going to be a fun few weeks at COTA.
It certainly is, and it's going to be a fun couple of weeks here on the service, beginning here tonight with this Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summer Bowl. These drivers have been out on track, single car qualifying session, and the grid is now set. So let's go trackside and hand things off to tonight's Grand Marshal, Ted DiBiase Jr., with the most famous words in motorsports.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, sizes, backgrounds, Ted DiBiase Jr. here, former WWE superstar, coming at you tonight, coming in hot. And it is my honor to get this party started tonight. I'm ready to see who's gonna take home the money. So, without further ado, drivers, start your engines!
Let's look trackside at your Equity Prime Mortgage starting grid. Jimmy Mullis is on pole position for this one with a 2-minute, 11.726 second lap time. That'll bring us to the green flag alongside fellow eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series competitor Vicente Salas. Then you'll find Ozan Walsh in the number 3 spot, joined alongside by Garrett Maines in 4th. And the top talent continues with Zach Novak in the number 5 spot, joining row 3 with P6 Austin Edwards.
The names you'll have seen if you've been around the sim for a bit on the second page here. I think most notably one of the Air Force gaming drivers. We talked to Devin Zimmerman earlier. Chris Walsh finds himself here, as does Brandon Garrett. Got Cody Harris, Bob Eldred, and Guillaume Hisnot, and with Garrett Conrad starting towards the back half of the top 10.
And it did it on through. Christopher Reagan going to be alongside Johnny Taylor. Michael Sturgell and Aaron Smith II going to be on road number 8. And then Josh Downey and Nathan Soren in the middle of the road.
Devin Zimmerman, we talked to him in pre-race. He starts on the inside of row 10 alongside Braden Black. John Lenoff is there with Chris Matthews starting in 22nd. Then Nick Brand and Bradley Goodman to complete row 12 in spots 23 and 24.
They got Randy Huff alongside Joshua King on Lucky at row number 13. We'll see how that plays out for them. And Donnie Fair and Devin Stark on row 14. Then you'll have Eldon Blanchard and Robin McMillan Jr. through the top 30.
Carson Bachman was the last driver to take time and the first one to elect to start from the back. How about NASCAR Cup Series driver for Front Row Motorsports, Anthony Alfredo? So he'll start on the outside of row 16, 32nd spot. He's got a ways to go, Evan.
He does have a ways to go, and the rest of these drivers not taking times at qualifying, alongside with Jocelyn Washington, Lee Ryerson Jr., and Jody Lowry. You look top to bottom at your starting green. James, we talked so much about COTA. Walk us through it.
Yeah, plenty to talk about here when it comes to Circuit of the Americas. This place opened in 2012. It's a 3.42 mile, 5.51 kilometer circuit with 20 turns. And drivers tonight are going to be going for 40 laps, just under 140 miles, just over 220 kilometers. The in-sim time right around 7 p.m. local time on the default day for iRacing, May 15th, 2021. Air temp in-sim is currently 78 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Those should hold pretty steady over the course of the evening, but they could drop, add a little bit more grip to this racetrack. Winds are very calm, steady 2 miles an hour, and humidity currently sitting at 55%. Pretty solid conditions to go racing in the heart of Texas, Evan.
Hey, you see the race lap record set by Charles Leclerc back in 2019. We're just a cool 35 seconds slower in a NASCAR stock car. There's a lot of horsepower in these things and a lot of weight, but they are not easily transferred to those rear tires, and that's why it makes these things such a challenge. Let's walk you through this one with a look at our podium race analysis. So these drivers, as mentioned, just finished a 10-minute 2-lap qualifying session to start the grid. 40 drivers to make the show. 39 are here, so everybody is in. This race is 40 laps in distance. That'll be just over 137 miles of racing. Now, it is a fixed setup race, so some of those more well-known names and some of the larger teams, they don't have a big advantage over everybody else. They don't have their setup guys working on something to give them an advantage. Everybody is on an even playing field here tonight. There is one quick repair available to every driver if they so need it. It'd be nice if you don't, but if you're new to iRacing, that basically means if your car gets damaged, you don't have to do the conventional thing of sitting in the pit box and letting it get fixed. If you decide to use your one quick repair, you'll basically get a brand new race car. That's the best thing of the sim. All the real life guys will tell you is that reset button. And you do need to stay clean in this race as well. If you get 16 incident points, you will get disqualified. That happens if you end up off track, make contact with another car, and that can add up pretty quickly when you're talking about 40 laps, 20 turns apiece. So discipline, I think, it'll be pretty key as well in this one. As we get set to roll, let's welcome in the fourth member of tonight's broadcast team. Justin Prince is joining us down from pit road. Justin, I know you've been talking with a lot of these guys pre-race. What you got for us?
Well, Jimmy Mullis is very confident about this race tonight, especially with some of the performances from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, where he started a few years ago at the back end of the top 10 for the finishing orders, then rose up to 2 P2 finishes in the 2020 season. He described this racetrack as a facility that's a 3-mile flat short track with zero grip and right turns. He personally loves the character of this racetrack and feels like it really relies on the patience and being smooth, which will usually play out really well for drivers such as himself. He also, in turn, is thinking about this in preparation for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series as an opportunity to be in a race-type situation and be better prepared for next week as well. In other words, a potential positive outlook for Mullis and company.
The drivers right now rolling through the back half of the racetrack. They started on the long straightaway between turns 11 and 12, so that real sharp left-hander they started with was 12. They just went through 13, 14, 15, and now this kind of gradual double apex is basically 3 corners, 16, 17 right here in between the two of them, and then when you cut back down to the inside here, that is turn 18. There are 2 more left-handed corners for 19 and then 20, and then you have that infamous run down the front straightaway and then up the hill to corner number 1. But the lights are off on top of the iRacing official pace truck, and we are going racing this time by. We're so happy that you're spending your evening with us for Podium Esports' coverage of the ERA Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summer Bowl for the virtual circuit of the Americas. Pace cars off, the field in the hands of the number 46 of Jimmy Mullis as we say, let's go road racing at COTA. Big question was, do they make it through turn number 1 clean so far with Mullis in front?
I was holding my breath the entire time. I was like, will they make it? Will they make it? And now they're going through the S's, and look at them follow the leader right through the S's, looking so clean. Some of them hitting the turtles or curb, whatever you want to call it, getting through there clean, but these drivers so far are looking pretty good, and that's what we like to see.
I wonder if we need to talk about sectors and curbs with a K and all of that being at the F1 circuit, but how silly of us, James, to question some of the best on the surface if they could get through turn 1. Made that one look calm, and as they head down the little bit of a short shoot, here's a tight left-hander in turn number 11. Salas looking to the inside for the race lead, and then a long run, high speed down the back straightaway, looking for turn 12.
You get a major accordion effect both here at turn 1 and at the top end of the racetrack because these hairpins are so tight, and you'll see a lot of great passing opportunities on corner entry, but the field will really spread out on corner exit. So when you get these runs down the back straightaway and off into the stadium section, they'll get strung up a little bit before they come back together and bunch up as the track tightens up. Also of note, the one driver that did have trouble entering turn 1 a little bit further back in the field, Anthony Alfredo, couldn't tell if the brake pedal just didn't quite work or if he locked him up, but ran into trouble early, so he's got damage on his number 38 iRacing Ford Mustang. But it's road racing. Damage doesn't necessarily hurt you all that much at the end of the day because it's more about the power you put down with the car. That's really what gets you the fast lap times here.
You spoke earlier in this race with Devin Zimmerman. He had a bit of an issue as well, spinning it out on the first lap of the race, dropped him back about 18 spots. No damage, though, so he's still going. And you can see now as the majority of the field coming through what the stadium section. Sharp left-hander in turn 20, back to the front straightaway. That is 1 lap around Circuit of the Americas. That back straightaway, Jesse, so fun. We talk about the technicality aspects of this, right? And as we see these guys get through the first couple of corners and then they'll get to those S's, right? A comment that I made pre-race was you're basically setting up for the corner 3 corners down the road now, right? You can't drive each corner too aggressively because then you're going to hurt yourself on the back end. You do need to be very methodical in your approach. So there are aspects of this track where you need to be very refined, but then you get to the back straightaway and you send it 180 miles an hour and then have to slow it down to 40 to make turn 12. I mean, this racetrack's really got a bit of everything as we go on board with Salas in second.
Definitely a very demanding track on these cars and on these drivers. And even though it's on the sim, we're not going to really see how the track is really truly affecting the actual vehicle. When we actually see the race actually happen in real life here pretty soon next week, we're actually going to see some of these cars take on a little bit of damage because of some of these curves and how they're having to attack it. Anytime a stock car has to go on a road course, it is a very physical day for the track and a physical day for the driver. For these drivers who are at home in their sims, you got to remember, they're not playing on consoles. They're playing on a full cockpit with a steering wheel, shifter, pedals, all that stuff. So some of these drivers, by the end of this race, they are going to be sweating because it's 40 laps. And although 40 laps doesn't seem like a lot because we're used to 150 lap, 200 lap races, on a road course when it's 2 minutes and 15-second laps, 2 minutes, 20-second laps, and you add that up, it's a lot of time, and there's not going to be a lot of cautions. They're just going to run this thing pretty much straight through unless we see some big pileup in the race.
And we're seeing great stuff up here in the battle for the race lead. No changes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, Salas looking to the inside as they come through turn number 15. The second half of the racetrack, James, with that 55 machine, Space Station Gaming on board. That Ford is all over Jimmy Mullis at the top of the board right now, but right there, Oysen Walsh still in third. Garrett May and still P4. We did see Austin Edwards make a pass on Zach and Novak, so they swap out 5 and 6. But Jimmy Mullis was hoping for a walk in the park. He's not getting it.
What's so intriguing to me about these front four is how this setup plays to each of their strengths. We heard Justin talk about how Jimmy likened this track to driving around a flat track, a short track, and we know how good he is on those in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Got the victory at New Hampshire a year ago and Pocono 2 years ago, so it makes sense that he would be good. Likewise, it makes sense that Vicente Salas would be good. He's got a Supercars USA national title under his belt and plenty of road racing experience. In real life, that's where he's done most of his driving. So, makes sense that Vicente's got speed. Oysen Walsh, David Walsh, depending on how you know him and where you've seen him, he's got speed. He's a specialist in running these Cup Series cars on road courses in the sim. So, no surprise he's here. And then Garrett Maines, champion of the Podium Esports Stock Car Challenge Series a few years back, which took these Cup cars and ran on road courses. So, each and every one of these drivers in the top four, and even Austin Edwards, we know has plenty of experience in the sim, there's all very good reasons as to why they're already up here, already fighting for the race lead.
You saw a quick glimpse there of Devin Zimmerman, who had a spin early. He has since picked up a few spots, and he's back up to P32. And here is the exchange from Austin Edwards on back. So Zimmerman's got back going. No major incident. Somebody's off through the S's just up the road from that number 16 machine. So everywhere you look, somebody's going to be struggling to make the corners here at COTA. But for the most part, you do have a fair bit of runoffs, Jesse. So you talk about the racetrack actually damaging these cars as Salas again going to look to the inside. Mullis leaves room, hangs it out a little bit, and 55 machine right there for the race lead. Working lap number 3. Can he get the 46?
Wow, that is some exciting racing right there, and that's exactly what we knew was going to happen. And I love that they're comparing this to a short track. I didn't really think about it because every time I try to jump on this track on the sim, I'm having a different. Is a very tough track, and I was trying to figure out what is this track like. And now that people are saying that it's very much like a flat short track, I'm like, that is exactly what it is, a flat short track. They're very difficult to drive because you just can't ever find the grip you want to really throw it in the corner like you want. Other tracks, other road courses you go to, you know, there's a lot more banking on a lot of the corners. Here, it's not. I mean, there are elevation changes and all of that, but there really isn't much banking to hold the car, so it makes it very, very difficult to get through these corners, to get through them fast, and you really have to finesse it, you really have to be smooth, and it's tough. It's not easy at all.
Yeah, the elevation is uphill and downhill. It's not side to side to stick that race car to the racetrack in the corners. And look how wide they had to take that approach to 1 because you want to go for the way undercut because turn 2 comes up and you need to be on the left-hand side of the racetrack to set yourself up for the S as well. But Salas has been able to break free and goes to the race lead early in this one. We saw a touch in the final corner in turn 20. Walsh got a bit of a hit behind from Maines, but so far so good, Justin, inside of our top 4.
And for Vicente, got the chance to speak with him before today's action. He said when it comes to road course races, anytime there's a race on a road course race, he is there because road course racing has grown to be one of his favorite forms of racing in general. He said it's been pretty chill in terms of preparation for this race, whether it's been for the qualifying runs or whether it's been for long runs in preparation for this race. But he also said the main thing for him when it comes to this preparation has been learning the lines and keeping the tires under the car. The tire fall off has been something many different drivers have instituted as what could be a significant amount throughout this race today.
And just watching these leaders, you know, we talk about the length of this. And to that point that Justin made there on Vicente, James, he could be a big fan of what's coming up with the Cup Series, right? They're going here. They're going to have Road America. They're going to have Watkins Glen. So if he's a fan of road course racing, the next couple of weeks on that end of things, looking up for the 55 team, could he challenge the likes of Zelensky and others? But when we compare this track to those others, right? You got Sonoma, 1.99 miles, the way that they run it. For the NASCAR Cup cars, when you head out to Watkins Glen, Glen, much shorter as well. They run the short course at Watkins Glen. That puts them in at about 2.4 miles. We're at 3.43, right? NASCAR didn't opt to go for a shorter layout. They went for the full Grand Prix circuit here, and I think if you're going to race COTA, race it like it was designed. I mean, it is not an exaggeration when we say this is a long lap.
I think it's interesting how I go back through my mind and think about all the series that have run at COTA, and the only major one that I can think of that's used the national course, the wet course, the short course that sort of cuts off the back straightaway and brings you right over from the SS to the stadium section, I believe was when the Australian Supercars came here in 2013, which I think speaks to the strength of the full layout. There's not really too many people that run that short layout because everybody just wants to run the big one. Like you said, they want the full challenge, and you get a lot of really cool, interesting pieces that you touch on when you do a full lap here at COTA that you don't necessarily get when you run that half lap. Of course, at this track, one of the many ones designed around the world by Herman Tilke, and Tilke made it a very big point to incorporate some of the best sections of tracks around the world when creating a lap here at COTA. The S's that we just saw the drivers pass through, modeled after the Beckett-Stowe complex at Silverstone, the stadium section that they reach after the back straightaway, modeled after the similar section at Hockenheim, which just made it onto the sim earlier this year, and then that final run around turn 16, turn 17, around the bridge and the 360-degree tower, modeled after Istanbul Park's turn 8. So sort of a potpourri of different great corners of the world that you get in a full lap at COTA, and it makes perfect sense why you'd want to run the whole thing to get the most out of your laps here.
Finally seen some separation up at the front of the field. One thing that your race leaders, as this race stays green, are going to start to have to deal with shortly is a bit of lapped traffic, right? We've had a couple of single car spins here and there. Some drivers towards the back missing a corner but having to serve a slowdown penalty. These race leaders are going to start to catch up to them. They're right now, the race leaders coming out of 15. Lap traffic is still on the front straightaway, so they're still a few laps away. But we talk about a short track, and Jesse, an infamous thing about racing on those smaller tracks is dealing with traffic in your way. It's a different challenge here when the preferred line is different every corner. If these leaders do start to deal with some thick lap traffic later on in this race, could be a determining factor in how well they succeed. If those lapped cars can see them coming, if you're going to communicate with them, and how cleanly you can get yourself through. There's a lot of race cars on the track. Fortunately, it's big and they can spread out, but that will be a factor, I think, later on.
It's definitely a factor for sure, especially, with lap traffic. When these drivers are going through the track, lap traffic, they're going to take away that preferred line. So you're going to have to find some way to go around them. When you're going through the corner, maybe you want to take the inside, maybe you want to take the outside, whatever you have to do to get around them. But the thing is, it's going to slow you down. And when you get slowed down on a road course, especially a track like this where you go into all these slower corners and then from there have a very long run, if you really don't get the right run off that corner, you literally could lose 1, 2, 3 seconds on your lap time just because of maybe potentially one lap car. So these are going to definitely become an issue for some of these drivers at some point during the race when the leaders end up catching some of the cars that might have spun, might have wrecked, might have had some issue, maybe aren't up to speed yet, who knows. But it's definitely going to play a factor in this race. We definitely saw it the other night in the heat race when Jimmy Mullis had an issue with one of the lap traffic cars that he ended up getting into through one of the corners. He got into him, and that ended his day during the heat race. So a lot can happen, and we're going to see how much of a factor it ends up being for this race.
And that's a fair point that we haven't really got a chance to touch on yet, is that, all these events, the Winter Bowl, Spring Bowl, Summer Bowl, all 2-night events, right? You mentioned it all started with the qualifying and the heats on Monday just to get to this feature race here tonight with this presentation of iRacing on Podium Esports. Kind of watching these top 4 fracture at the moment. Salas continues to lead. Jimmy Mullis was a little bit further back than he is now the last lap, but the 46s closed it back in just a smidge, so that's the battle for the lead. And then you also saw Walsh and Maines fighting behind for 3rd and 4th. And on a few of those shots, we could see the front-end damage to Garrett Maines. I mentioned Maines had gotten into the back of Walsh in 20, maybe 4 laps ago now. And you can see the front-end damage on the 2 and subsequently the back-end damage on the 47. Fortunately for Garrett, it doesn't appear to be hurting him at this point. But anytime I get substantial front-end damage, I'm always worried about the engine.
always worried about engine temps too, which can be a little bit more of a concern here just because you've got the low downforce, high horsepower package on these engines. That means you're going to send them up further into the RPMs than you would on a 1.5 mile racetrack. So you, of course, also get the breathers when you get on the brakes to cool the engine down a little bit, but that's something that Garrett Mange is going to have to be mindful of over the course of the remaining 33 laps or so. It might not necessarily be the same cakewalk, but so long as he can manage the engine temps, again, major key to success here. And I think why we're seeing so many of the drivers like Jimmy Mullis who have success on road courses, Austin Edwards, or rather success on short tracks, but and Austin Edwards goes to this camp too, but it's the same sort of acceleration and deceleration that you get into out of these corners, right? You have to manage the power that you have in the rear of your car, and you can't just mash the throttle to get back on the gas if you get on the straightaway. It's about sort of rolling in and rolling out of it. We talked about Formula One. You think of the great Michael Schumacher. That's where he was better than everyone else in his time, especially with Scuderia Ferrari. He was better at getting back to the throttle the right way, and he would make up a 10th here, a 10th there, and would be successful. And, you add that up about 40 laps, that can, mean 20, 30 seconds and get you an easy podium. Same sort of thing that I think we're seeing with Salas, with Mullis, with Edwards, with Maines, with Novak, all these drivers that have short track experience coming to the fore, coming to the front. And in that sense, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise.
Back on board with Jimmy Mullis, who started this race from pole position, but last couple of times by, it has been all Salas in first and second to continue to pull away. They're about on average 3-ish tenths of a second better than those drivers behind them. So clearly, Salas and Mullis, the class of the field. Now, last time by, Salas had the best lap out of anybody on track with a 2:16.098. In fact, only your top 5 still in the 2-minute and 16-second bracket, so just kind of monitoring that when it comes to fall off. We touched on the strategy early in this as look out, some cars off the road right in front of the race leaders. Michael Gallagher was one of them, and Lee Ryerson Jr. the other. They had come together. The 29 actually self-spun, and that was the hazard just in front of the leaders, but they were able to safely navigate that one. And well, that goes to show you, Jesse, to the point where I said that lap traffic can be a factor at any moment. Without warning, you're coming through a corner, you got 2 race cars stopped, and good heads-up driving by not only these 2, but the cars that were around as well to make sure that that wasn't bigger than it could have been.
Yeah, that could have been a lot bigger for sure, and that's what we knew was going to happen. It's just part of road course racing. It's going to happen. Eventually, lap traffic is going to play a factor, and you just got to figure out some way of how am I going to deal with the lap traffic. And the thing is, you actually have time to figure it out. Unlike a short track, unlike a normal oval track, when you're coming up on lap traffic, a lot of times it's happening within seconds. Whereas for lap traffic on a road course, you see them from, I like to say a mile away, but yeah, like a mile away. But when you're coming up on them, you have time to think about it. So you really got to plan it out. When am I going to meet them? Or maybe do I slow down just a touch so I can meet them at a particular corner so it's not as bad? Because there's certain corners on this track where you really don't want to meet the lap traffic. You definitely don't want to be passing them through the S's. It's going to be a little bit tough. There's some other corners you don't want to pass them on, but there's some that you're like, hey, I'd rather pass them at this particular point. So it's all about dealing with it and figuring out how I'm going to get by it so that you don't lose as much time throughout the race.
And you saw a quick look back there at one of those U.S. Air Force Thunderbird paint schemes for the number 24 machine. There's a couple of those in the field. Pike, I know you had fun with those ones pre-race. There's a look at one of the number 24 machines. I've always been a fan of the Thunderbirds and, the F-16C Fighting Falcons based just up the road from me at Nellis Air Force Base here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So I'm going to join you on the impartiality. I think some of the best looking cars in the field tonight, and in a great fight right now, in fact, because looks like Hesnault and maybe a third driver and Bob Eldred trying to get in now in this fight. So how about a 3-way scrap?
This is about the part of the race where you start seeing the battles in the midfield show up. So cool that we're getting a chance to drop back and ride with one of the Air Force gaming drivers in Brandon Agerchich, who's got the lead of this group, but only by a hair. And I think just going to let Bob Eldred go there and let Guillaume Hesnault try and make his way through as well. Because this particular section, if you've got a high downforce car, an open wheel machine, or a sports car, you can take this pretty much flat out. But in these stock cars, they don't have as much downforce. They don't have as much keeping the rear end of the car planted, and all of a sudden you have to get on the brakes and sort of have to tiptoe through that part of the course before you get back to sort of regular racing fare at turn 20 or so.
Just enjoying the onboard shot, all that counter steer that's having to go on there in the battle for this number 1 position, almost 1/4 of the way through this Summer Bowl from COTA, brought to you by our friends at Equity Prime Mortgage. You're on board with Jimmy Mullis. Some lap traffic up the road. Look out, and Salas is going to have to go off and basically off track there. Not ideal, and not a fan of how that one shook out.
that was interesting, and but that's what makes it fun. I mean, that's the point of having 40 cars out there competing. We want a lot of cars out there. We want people to have the opportunity to compete for wins, opportunity to compete for part of this prize money. And we're giving away $5,000 cash, and that's not tokens. That's not gift cards. That's $5,000 cash that they can use for whatever they want. So opportunity here to win. So that's why these guys are fighting. They're fighting hard. They're going to do whatever it takes to get there. But as I'm watching this race, I'm seeing a lot of beautiful paint schemes, and we actually have some ERA painters, some designers who we're actually going to be having them give away some free paint schemes to some of our lucky fans out there. So anyone who signs up for our mailing list, they can just go to eragaming.gg and sign up for our email list. We're going to be picking just random people in there to be giving away a lot of cool stuff. One of them is going to be our paints. We're going to be giving away some other cool things. We have some cool watches that we can give away. We're going to find some cool experiences that we can give away to some of these folks on our mailing list. So just go join the email list. Even if you don't want to become an ERA member just yet, just join the email list so you can continue to stay up to date on what we have going on, and maybe you'll win something pretty cool. So go to eragaming.gg.
Well, that goes to a point. I'll jump right back to you, Jesse, on this one that I mentioned earlier, right? When it comes to these ERA events, it's not just the spring bowls and the summer bowls. In fact, in the effort to kind of foster and build this great community of sim racing underneath the banner of ERA, you guys hold bi-weekly races that are open. We talk about the member races. There's also non-member opportunities for drivers to just get involved. So we see the big money race tonight. What else can people expect if they want to get involved with the ERA?
Yeah, so recently we started trying to figure out, okay, how can we get other people involved? Even if maybe they're not completely ready to compete in these bigger events that are broadcasted, throughout, all through the internet. We give people an opportunity to jump on and be part of these exhibition races that we put on. And what we do is we just pick some random fun tracks that we want to see Cup cars go run at, and when we let them go run. And for those events, it's no prize money involved or anything. It's really just fun runs, go out there and compete. But what we're going to probably start doing pretty soon is figuring out which ones where we can give away some cool prizes. We'll figure out some way where maybe the winners can win something cool. So we're still in the early stages of all that stuff, but we are putting on those events. We've had a couple so far. I believe the last one we did was at Bristol Dirt. So it was pretty cool to see a bunch of cars out there racing and competing just for fun. So we want to put this on to keep drivers busy throughout the year. If they're looking for something to compete in, we do broadcast it on our ERA pages. Me and Sean Yoder just jump in the booth and have fun with it. We're no pros at all when it comes to broadcasting for sim racing stuff, but we just have fun with it, talk about what's going on, inform all our viewers what we have coming up next, and just give an opportunity for these drivers to compete for fun against other ERA members so that when the real events come, they're ready to go.
Well, I wouldn't sell yourself short. You've done quite the bit of reporting stuff as well with NASCAR coverage, and certainly happy to have you hanging out here with us as we continue to watch the never-ending battle for the race lead. There had really been no point, James, for Vicente Salas here to take a deep breath up in the front of the field. Mullis just continuing to hound him for the number 1 position, taking a good look at that time to see can he get a position as they come back down the front straightaway and to make that run off and into turn number 1, getting to 1/4 of the way through this race, right? Race leader's working out lap number 11 of 40. So halfway in theory on the fuel number, and we mentioned his pre-race. Fortunately, the way the strategy works out with race length here is it's pretty cut and dry. You're going to come in at one point at halfway, you're going to get fuel and tires, you'll be good to go to the end of the race. So there isn't a lot of leeway for these drivers to go split it up and go for a two-stopper versus the one-stopper. There's one very clear strategy, but I wonder, at least in the case of this battle for the race lead, with these two being so close, how creative could Vicente or Jimmy get to try to separate himself from one another, because these guys are going to be worn out if they have to race like this all night long. I mean, there's always that point that I think a lot of people who don't race at a high level, I don't want to say professional level, but just at some of the higher levels on the sim, where they may forget that, this is hard work, especially a road race.
Definitely tricky work, and I think especially if you don't have that much leeway on the pit strategy and you're likely just going to make the one stop, the only real thing that you can do, especially if you're in Jimmy Mullis's position where you're riding in second, might be to try and short pit Vicente Salas by a lap or two. But then if Vicente finds a way to respond quickly and come down pit road, the lap after Jimmy comes, then it almost ends up being a moot point. So I don't even really think there's going to be much in it so far as strategy goes. We may see somebody a little bit further back try and come down early just to get some speed and get some fresh tires underneath them earlier on in this race. But then you also give that up on the back end because your tires will be older than everyone else when we get to the very end of this. So there's a bit of a give and take there. You just have to figure out where the right balance is. But for the most part, this is going to be something I think that gets determined on the racetrack, and maybe eventually with the lap traffic too. You'll have to work your way around that. And maybe there's a point where you might come down pit road to get yourself out of a glut of lap traffic if that ends up opening up the racetrack for you, and if you can find some clean space to race once you get done with your pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see how far ahead these race leaders are as we take a look at some of the drone shots, and you can see the distance that they've opened up over third and fourth. I just don't see enough flexibility in the strategy there for the likes of Walsh and Maines to be able to go for an undercut and all of a sudden end up in front of these race leaders and, try to slow them down and block and protect that position for the end of this one. So clearly speed going to be the number one factor in execution so far, has been picture perfect for basically everybody inside of the top 10. We haven't really had anybody who's, dropped way out. You've, got Hesnell, who started in the number 12 spot up to 9th. But other than that, Eldred only dropped one, Novak dropped one, Mullis started up front, dropped one to second. So we really haven't seen, at least amongst our race leaders, Jesse, anybody have a big mistake and drop way to the back. You take a look at Guillaume Hesnell there, who's up 3 positions, started 12th and is up to 9th. That's basically the biggest mover in the top 10. Now, there's some guys mid-pack who have made a lot more noise, but our top 10 have been pretty clean and pretty on point tonight as these race leaders have to split a bit of lap traffic.
And that's something I expected for the top 10. We have a lot of skilled drivers in this race. Some people, like we've mentioned earlier, people who have been competing in the Coca-Cola series, people who just have really high I ratings and are just really good drivers on iRacing. But after watching that heat race the other day, it really pretty much got me to realize that some of these guys they're good. They're just flat out good. And you can see it right here with these top two. They have been neck and neck the entire time. And it's one thing to be able to do that on an oval course. It's one thing to be able to do that on a short track, 1.5 mile. I wouldn't say it's easy to stay like that with somebody, but it's kind of easy to stay like that with somebody. But to do it on a road course where there's all these different corners, all these different opportunities to make mistakes, and for them to just basically sit there about 10, 15 feet apart from each other the entire time, and we're 12 laps in, and although 12 laps doesn't seem like a lot, that's 12 times 2 minutes, that's 24, 25 minutes or so worth of racing without really ever splitting up. So that is, that's just kudos to them for just being as skilled as they are. And we love having skilled drivers jump into this series, jump into this league, and show us what they got. And show it, on this broadcast here that we're broadcasting all across all the sim racing channels that we can put it on.
It's always good to watch the best of the best do it. And just a note, you talk about I-rating. Garrett Maines, the highest I-rating out of anybody in this race, with a 6,057. He rides in position number 4 at the moment, still trying to chase down Ozzy Walsh for the number 3 spot. But, to your point, it's exactly right. I mean, if you're at an intermediate track, an oval, there's only so many different things you can do. That's where you're really fighting for thousandths of a second, right? A little bit offline here, a little bit of a slight variation, and when you get off throttle, on throttle. But here at a road course, there's 2 minutes and 18 seconds is what your race leaders are running for lap times right now. You would think that that's so many parts where somebody could be significantly faster or slower than somebody else, that you would see everybody spread away out. The fact that the battle for 1, 2 and this battle for 3 and 4 are so tight is pretty incredible. And Justin, they haven't had to come down pit road yet, but I know that's starting to get on their minds as we work lap 13.
And when talking with some of the drivers when it comes to the strategy, in particular the race leaders, are expecting a one-stop or essentially to split it up in half. But many of the drivers, especially Jimmy Mullis, has indicated over the radio that he has been trying to keep an eye on the incident points. One of the main things predicted, though, that's coming into play is this intense battle. Mullis expected this type of fighting potentially up towards the front. And compare that to Vicente Salas, who mentioned where he expects himself to be right there contending for the win, where he holds himself to a high competitive standard and to really hold true to it. Both of the drivers in what they predicted have come true so far. So expect drivers to pit around the halfway mark of this race. Estimated fuel is about 22 laps.
Good job there by the lap traffic as well. You saw a bit of smoke and thought maybe there was an issue. That was Lee Ryerson Jr. who went off track, and then he made sure to basically pull over and let Salas and Mullis go on by as to not interfere in the battle for the race lead. So good stuff from those lap traffic, from allowing these race leaders to kind of race this one out and determine it amongst themselves. Part of racing is dealing with lap traffic. You never know where they're going to be, what they're going to do, but it is always good when you can let these guys race it out. And Jimmy Mullis continues to be plastered on the back end of Vicente Salas. We are now working lap number 14 from Circuit of the Americas to the inside. Oh, and there's a bit of a contact, and Vicente Salas moved out of the way, and Jimmy Mullis back to the race lead. Not sure that's how he wanted that one to go, but I think it was just slight contact, Mike.
Yeah, really slight contact there. We'll see one more shot at it coming up the hill. Right before this replay started, there was some contact between Salas and the lap machine that falls out of frame, and then Jimmy and Vicente go thundering up the hill, and I couldn't tell if Jimmy lost some of the brakes a little bit or if Vicente might have gotten a little bit crossed up, but it wasn't huge contact, but just enough to set him off, and now there's a gap of about maybe 4 or 5 car lengths between the two, which isn't impossible, but it certainly changes the way you look at it.
And Justin, sounds like Jimmy feels like he wasn't the one in the wrong on that one.
He's asking for confirmation over the radio. In fact, right now, did he move under braking in that situation? So he wasn't quite sure what happened in the first place as well before then. Wondering if there was a mistake or if it was moving under braking. So it is something him and his crew are checking on their side as well.
Well, either way, and it couldn't even tell, by the way, on the replay if they touched or if Vicente saw the 46 coming low and just straightened the ship to not get taken out. But either way, it has moved Jimmy Mullis back to the race lead as pit stops approach. We'll take a quick opportunity to step aside. You're watching the Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summer Bowl on Podium Esports. Well, race in action continues from the virtual Circuit of the Americas. Happy you're with us for this special presentation of iRacing on Podium Esports as the ERA Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summer Bowl continues from Austin, Texas. And we saw the off there for Devin Zimmerman as we were on the side-by-side. I had mentioned that he had a bit of a spin earlier in this race, and another one here. It was in the run down to turn number 1, and he got checked up through traffic. You'll see this. He's trying to make a pass for position. He's basically been storming through the field to make up for some of those spots that he lost at the beginning of this race. And he's going to basically be let go by Christopher Matthews in the Air Force Gaming entry right there on the inside. Thought about it, but opted not to. And as he's looking up the road, that's going to be Bradley Goodman in 23rd for position. And I wonder if Goodman just got on the brakes harder than Zimmerman was expecting. Look how far back he's coming from, but look out, locked him up and just avoided getting into the back of him. Spins it off of the racetrack. No harm, no foul. That race car is still clean. He falls back to 24th. So Devin Zimmerman with at least his second spin of the night, Jesse. But when that car's pointed the right direction, he's fast. He had fallen to the 30th spot early, but every time he makes a mistake, he's able to drive his way back through the field. So impressive stuff so far.
Yeah, he's definitely impressive, that's for sure. But don't let the clean car fool you. That's the thing. Anytime you have a spin, especially on a track like this where tire wear is actually a thing, every time you have a spin like that, every time you lock up those tires, you are literally eating away that rubber, that grip that you potentially should have had. You don't have it anymore now. Every time you lock them up, every time you spin. So although that car looks clean, although it looks like nothing's wrong with it, that driver is now fighting for grip every single corner now until he gets new tires. And that's just the tough part about road course racing. The moment you have a mistake like that, it literally will ruin the next part of your race until you can get some better tires on there.
And to your point, Devin Zimmerman down pit road. So maybe he feels like he didn't do too much damage to those tires. Chris Matthews is also on pit road. And we've had a couple of other short pitters of the likes of Devin Stark, Robert McMillan Jr., Lee Ryerson Jr. Have all been on pit road earlier in this race, only about 3 laps ago for service. Matthews and Zimmerman coming off of the pit lane now. So some drivers may feel like that the way that they're driving it, at least, that the tires die off too quick. A majority of the field, by the way, is about 5-6 seconds slower than the leaders, right? So managing fall off is certainly a huge aspect to this one, Pike. So maybe for those guys towards the rear, if they are forced to come in this early for tires, they're not going to be able to go the distance to the end of the race with 25 to go. So maybe they've almost been forced into a 2-stopper here, even if the priority is still the 1 trip.
The priority and the ideal way to run this would be on 1 stop. But if you need the rubber to just make sure you can get around the course, you need the rubber. There's no way to get around that. And these drivers do have unlimited tires in the viz, so not like that's a huge issue. Not like you're going to run out of sets if you need them, but you'll obviously lose time compared to the drivers up front. Now, the one driver that I've seen that's already come in for service that raises my eyebrow a little bit, David Walsh, Oyson Walsh, the Irishman, came in 2 laps ago, and of the front runners, he's really the only one that's decided to take an early pit stop. So we'll keep an eye on him as you see Anthony Alfredo on your screens trying to make his way through the field after his wild lap 1, turn 1 slide. He's made it back up to 16th, so nice recovery for Anthony, but I have a feeling that he certainly won't mind the practice in advance of all of the racing he's going to do at COTA over the next 2 weeks.
He'll be fortunate that they actually get some practice, right? The norm has kind of been none, so not going to be totally blind, but racing on the sim can always help. We're on board with Christopher Reagan, started in 13th, and is up to P10, so he's got a couple of positions out of this one, but to the point of Walsh, who decided to come down early and has really been one of the only race leaders to pull that trigger, Justin, you've got an update on that.
Yes, indeed, and talking with Tucker Minter, his crew chief for this race, he said that was the plan from the start, to try something different. But the main reason was to fix the damage that was on his car, because he felt that it made the car slide with the back-end damage from the contact with Garrett Maines and lose a couple tenths per lap. So they fixed the car, and they're on strategy for a 2-stopper on the tires on their call.
So we are mixing it up, just what we thought, that everything was going to be uniform and fine. Some drivers have opted to mix things up, and we'll see how that will play into the strategy as this race goes on. On board with the number 38 machine, that's Bob Eldred in 9th position right now, engaged in a pretty good battle with the car up the road as he's trying to get around Hesnall there in the number 68. This, what was a battle, I think, when it's 4 cars not that long ago, is now still a trio because Christopher Reagan's hanging on to the back end of this in the 31. These 3 have been together all night long, Jesse. You mentioned, those mid-pack battles are something that's going to pick up as this race goes on, and as your race leaders start to maybe stretch themselves out from everybody else, it can be exhausting mentally and physically if you're these guys, and it feels like for all 17 laps of the race, you haven't gotten more than 4 car lengths away from somebody. You'd love to just kind of ride a little bit and log some laps and take care of the car at some point mid-race, but if you can't get away from somebody and you're stuck in a battle like this, you got to be on it the whole time.
Exactly. You can watch you can watch this counter steer. He really controlled that car through the S's, and that's what makes it really fun. It's what makes this thing really, really fun to watch. These drivers really fighting these cars through these corners, because the thing with these Generation 6 cars are they're good cars, they're fast cars, they got big motors, they handle fairly decent, but honestly, they don't handle like a Corvette. And the reason I say Corvette, because I'm a huge Corvette fan and I have a few Corvettes. But these cars were really meant to be on ovals. So when you take these big, heavy stock cars to these road courses, the brakes aren't really great for what they do on here. Not enough grip, not enough this, not enough that. That's what makes it fun, and that's why these drivers are some of the best in the world, the ones who are racing real life in NASCAR, the ones who are here on the sim. Like all these guys and girls who race on the sim, they're really, really good at what they do. And you're going to see battles throughout the entire field. The front runners, the ones who are up front in the top 3, they're really, really good at what they do. But everybody else, they're no slouches at all. They're very good at what they do too. They can control these vehicles very well. Yes, they're going to make mistakes. Yes, things are going to happen, but that's all part of racing. Even the best make mistakes. Even the best don't have perfect runs. But it's really exciting to watch how they're handling these cars, especially through the run, especially when these tires are wearing the way they are wearing.
Nice drive up the inside there by Garrett Conrath to snatch a position back. He's dropped off 6 from the start of the race, but just took 1 back there as he made quite the dive at the inside of Matthew Lee. That was an exchange for position number 12 and 13. So Garrett back into the positive, trying to get back up inside of the top 10 where he started this race. And you're seeing a little bit of battle scars on these cars throughout the field. A little bit of left front, I think, damage on the 9 that time. And look at all the counter steer that time. I mean, these guys are still working them hard. It's the priority to see how quickly you can get back onto full throttle is really what's going to be key here. And if you try to put that power down 100% right off of the corner, it's not going to stick. So that finesse is certainly key. We'll take one more opportunity, step aside for a moment. When we come back, pit stops are on deck. Jimmy Mullis continues to lead from COTA. It's the Summerbowl on Podium Esports. And back live for the virtual Circuit of the Americas. Next time by, going to be halfway home, so let's take a look at your iRacing midway race break, brought to you by iRacing. iRacing, the world's premier online racing game, puts you in the driver's seat to experience the newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing. All from your home PC, you could race virtually in Australian supercars, Indy cars, through IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. So we'll take a look top to bottom at your running order. Jimmy Mullis is still in the race lead. He has yet to come down pit road, and there has been plenty of discussion on the radio with that team on when they want to come in. Garrett Main, some 8 seconds down the road, was in that battle for the number 4 spot with Walsh, but it's all Mains is now in second, and then Zach Novak, one more step down the ladder, sits third. A little bit of a different running order because we have had some pit stops, and it all started with Austin Walsh there, who decided to come down pit road first. He has fallen to 4th. Remember, he and Mains were in a battle. We'll see how that plays out a bit later. Austin Edwards, the next driver down the road in position 5. He is still yet to pit, and it's had a pretty quiet evening, I think, all things considered, behind the wheel of that number 18 Chevrolet. And then Vicente Salas, just as we stepped aside. Remember, he was battling Jimmy Mullis for the lead. He has already come down and pitted. We talked about that strategy a little bit as well, so that's why he's down in P6. And the rest of your top 10 still need to come in. It includes right there Cody Harris up 1 spot to the number 7 position. Then you got Guilherme Hesno from 12th up to 8th position, so the 68 in the positive thus far this evening. Just ahead of Bob Eldred, who sits exactly where he started in 9th, James. And then how about Christopher Reagan, broken into the top 10 for the first time tonight? It's a +3.
Solid work from Chris Reagan to get up into the top 10. 11th is Garrett Conrad, the Nexus Esports driver, one of the ones who's already come down pit road for service. So a little bit further back where he's been running for the most part of this race, but we should see him cycle back up into the top 10. Michael Sturgell, who won the Spring Bowl at Daytona, rides in the 12th position, just ahead of Matthew Lee. And then you got one of the Air Force Gaming drivers, Brendan Agerchitz, the 24 that we've seen on the racetrack, is riding in the 14th position as it stands. 2 drivers currently on pit road in 15th and 16th, Josh Dowling, and then NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo as they roll on. Nathan Soren just jumped ahead of both of them on track, and he yet to come down pit road, so he'll probably cycle back around. And then you've got Chris Walsh hanging out in the 18th position, another Air Force Gaming driver, just ahead of Nicholas Brand in the 19th position, and Braden Black in 20th.
He just had a spin, so that's going to shuffle up that running order. But then everybody else here is a lap down right now. So Brandley Goodman right now, riding in the number 21 spot, is in the green, just ahead of John Lenhoff in 22nd. Then you'll find Christopher Matthews, one of the Air Force Gaming entries, sits in the number 23 spot. There he is on the racetrack right now. They're all going to shuffle up again because of one of the drivers who spun. So Matthews actually down 21st. Devin Zimmerman will move up to the number 22 spot, and then it'll be Bradley Goodman 23rd. So kind of a fluid situation back here in the middle of all the traffic. And then you have Eldon Blanchard, who is started in 29th position, goes up to the number 24 spot, just leading ahead of the likes of Joshua will become 25th shortly, currently sitting in P26. He's ahead of John Lenhoff, who's back in 27th. Bruno Castro Alves sits in 28th position. Joey Lowry sits 29th, and I think one of the last drivers on track, James, P30, is McMillan Jr.
Most of the drivers and the rest of the field off track at the moment. Donnie Fair scored in the 31st position, just ahead of Devin Stark in 32nd. Johnny Taylor rides in the 33rd spot. He's still on the racetrack. Rhett Tucker is off in 34th. Lee Ryerson Jr. is the last car running in 35th. Harrison Bachman, Michael Gallagher, and Aaron Smith all behind the wall in 36th, 37th, and 38th place, respectively.
To look top to bottom at your iRacing, a midway race break with over 170,000 drivers on the service and more than 90 laser scanned cars and tracks to choose from. iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get involved with iRacing. Every day is race day. Log on to iRacing.com for more information. So more stuff under the pit cycle there. We have since seen Jimmy Mullis come down pit road. Now Zach Novak, all of a sudden, once one of the few drivers who is yet to pit. The driver who started in 5th position has cycled through to the race lead. But we talked about these drivers being in a tight box, Pike, unable to really do a ton on strategy, right? Well, Vicente Salas came in way early in the exchange between he and Jimmy Mullis, and it has paid out well. Salas to the tune of 9 seconds ahead of Mullis after Mullis has completed his service. Now, Mullis is going to be faster now on fresher tires, but that 55 did a lot of work since he got off the pit road.
Done a lot of work, took advantage of the track position as your leader Zach Novak now comes down pit road. And yeah, that's exactly what we talked about some 5 or 6 laps ago, that somebody might try and short pit. And if you can get out on cleaner racetrack and run your race, you can gain time on some of the other drivers around you. Just taking a look at some of the stops as well, they were also pretty much dead even, both in their pit stop time and in their deltas from entry to the exit of pit lane. So that's all Vicente Salas just driving the wheels off of his Ford Mustang for Space Station Gaming. That's really the only difference at this point. But again, because he came in earlier, Jimmy Mullis will have the fresher tires for presumably the rest of the race amongst those two. And that may end up playing into his favor. This now may become a game of how well can Vicente Salas manage those Ford Goodyear Eagles to make sure that he's got something at the end.
And funny, we're talking about how good Vicente has ended up on this strategy, Justin, but that doesn't necessarily translate to a happy driver behind the wheel.
Yeah, this is from his crew chief, where the car they feel is not great with no grip. Right now, they're trying to take care of it this run. Keep in mind that the distance between those drivers grew by as much as 4 seconds at one point in terms of some of the separation after that initial pass. Right now, the delta between them, about 7.5 seconds.
That's going to be a game as the second half of this race continues to play on, and it is a high-speed game of chess, if you will. Impressed that the likes of Novak have been able to stay out, for this long. You talk about, how long they were able to make it, just having come down pit road the last time, which means that all of your race leaders, with the exception of Christopher Reagan, I think only he and Blanchard are the only drivers in the field who have yet to come down for pit service. But we weren't really expecting, Jesse, this race to split off into these different strategies, but we thought it was going to be pretty clear. You come in, you make your one stop, and you're set to go to the end. Everybody does it within 2-3 lap window, and we're good. But this thing has really opened up since those opening 10 laps.
Yeah, it's definitely opened up a lot for sure. A lot of people on different strategies, and that's the cool thing about sim racing is it's very, very similar to real life racing. Some of these folks have crew chiefs who we're talking to, and maybe they're standing right next to them. Maybe they're on the phone with them. Maybe they're on TeamSpeak or Discord or wherever they're at. They're communicating with their drivers, and they're telling them, hey, driver, we need you to do this at this particular time because we feel like due to your lap times or due to maybe the rest of the field's lap times, maybe we'll have a little bit of an advantage if we just play the game this way. So that's the crazy thing with iRacing. It's not just like a video game. This is true simulation of real life. You have crew chiefs, you have spotters, you have people who are really watching and trying to help you out through this race so that you can finish the best that you can. So it's really exciting to see that. We have a lot of drivers from all over the world, including, I want to give a big shout out to Bruno Castro Alves. He's actually from Brazil, a driver from Brazil. He doesn't speak English. He actually has to use a translator online when he has to translate different things, trying to even register for the events. But it's so cool that he doesn't let that stop him. He doesn't let it stop him out. Some people would be like, you know what, hey, this is not for me. But you know what? He wanted to compete. He wanted to compete in some type of stock car series on iRacing, and it's so cool to have him here competing with us today. I'm super excited that he's made it on there, and he's having a good time doing it.
Yeah, certainly love that determination and commitment to get into this race, and that's the coolest thing, right? You could race with anybody from across the world in an American NASCAR stock car, or we can go over and race at Interlagos or race some Australian V8 supercars with people from those countries. Really a uniting aspect of sim racing. And to Jesse's point here, James, he mentioned a lot of the characteristics that this has to real life. The spotters and the crew chiefs. Well, something else it has is penalties and the ever watchful eye of race control and we have a penalty after that cycle of pit service. Jimmy Mullis will receive a black flag penalty for driving through too many pit stalls on his pit stop. And now, just now here in race control, another penalty to Zach Novak. Same penalty, too many pit stalls driven through on pit road, and that limit is 2. So you can drive through and your tires can go through up to 2 pit boxes before your pit stall on pit road. I believe Mullis was hit for going through 4. Novak was hit for going through 3 of them, and they're obviously pleading their case to the tower, but penalties are penalties and pretty cut and dry. Let's watch Jimmy Mullis. He has the number 1 pit stall. Let's watch how many stalls he goes through before he gets down to the very last pit board, which is his.
So I guess we're going to do some math here, I suppose, which is certainly not my strong suit, but we look at it there, 1, 2, yeah, I can
almost 5.
Yeah, I can definitely see it with the left side of the car in particular. So imagine that's going to be either heartbreaking or frustrating or something or the other. Justin Prince, you have a little bit more on this.
And they are in disbelief after the call. They're still trying to plead their case right now in regards to this situation, but disbelief from some of the fellow competitors. Anthony Alfredo's reaction was, I feel so bad for Jimmy right now. And it's completely changed the approach now for Vicente Salas in his respective crew, because now they are now focused on just trying to take it easy and get to the finish after the penalty to Mullis. So this penalty sequence has completely changed the complexion of this race for some of the competitors.
In the case for Novak, we were seeing him in some other battles for position, right? But it was always the duo between Jimmy Mullis and Vicente Salas, who were 1-2 for most of this race. And, we talked about Salas not being happy with where the tire wear was after his cycle of pit service. Well, it completely changes the name of the game for the driver of that 55 machine. And I think we've all been there where we've either had to make that penalty call on the service or been on the receiving end of it, Jesse. I know it can't feel good, but rules are rules, and I think the drivers are more frustrated with themselves than they are with the actual rule, right? It's pretty cut and dry. I think most official, hosted and sanctioned races, I think the word I'm looking for is a struggle. Most sanctioned races here on the service have a very similar rule. You can only go through 3 or 2 pit stalls before your box. Otherwise, you'll have people driving down the left-hand side of pit road. So it is a good rule. And, what do you gain by driving through those 4, maybe a couple thousands? I mean, it's just really a silly mistake that those drivers are kicking themselves over, but you got to call it cut and dry, and I think it'd be a tough pill to swallow for 2 cars with a lot of speed in this race.
Yeah, I know they're not excited at all about that call, but it's a rule we have to make, because if we don't, we will literally have drivers driving through every single pit stall. And if you've been on iRacing before, you know how annoying that is when drivers are driving through your pit stall where you're trying to find it, you're trying not to hit them, all these things are happening. It becomes just chaotic, and it just doesn't look professional at all on the broadcast. So we have to put the rule down so that people aren't messing up other people's races. And yeah, here in a road course race where everyone really wasn't coming in at the same time, maybe they're looking at it, well, it didn't really matter because there's only me and others, maybe 1 or 2 other people on pit road. But we have to have that rule, and we have to keep it fair for all the races, whether it's a short track, a 1.5 mile, super speedway, or even a road course. We have to have that rule. And they know this stuff. They've been in sanctioned races. They've raced big time. They know how it is. It's just, a mistake that they maybe they just didn't think they were going to get caught, or maybe they just weren't thinking. I don't know, but I definitely feel sorry for them, but it's a rule we have to stick with.
No matter who you are, penalty is a penalty, and Jimmy Mullis is going to do his best to chase down Vicente Salas here for the race leader. You get that driver's mentality as well, right? You're going to argue the call and see if you can talk yourself out of it, but I don't think that's going to happen, and Vicente is going to be able to maintain the race lead in this one. We'll step aside and stick side by side so you don't miss a moment of the action. It's Vicente Salas in front with drama through the pit cycle at COTA. We're back live here for the virtual Circuit of the Americas, where Podium Esports' coverage of the ERA Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl rolls on in a caution-free affair thus far, with our producer Ryan Bauer, Justin Prince on pit road, James Pike, Jesse Wucci, and myself, Evan Pisoko. Not for a lack of drama, this race has gotten real interesting in the second half of this one, and next time by, race leader Vicente Salas will have just 14 laps to go. Jimmy Mullis, you can see, currently in the number 4 spot. He did finally come down and serve that penalty for going through too many pit stalls on the pit lane. He was penalized simply with a drive-through penalty that dropped him for the battle for the race lead to about 17 seconds down the road in position number 4. Zach Novak, who was also penalized for going through too many stalls, came down pit road 2 laps ago to serve that penalty. It has dropped him back to about 7 seconds behind Austin Edwards for the battle for 5 and 6, which is what he was involved with earlier. So that's the update for the front of the field. Lots of mid-pack action going on. Josh Downing, Chris Walsh, some of the drivers fighting in the middle of the road. That's a car that I was talking about under the yellow. They're trying to chase down NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo. I think Downing's got one of the best-looking cars in the field here. How about that themed ERA Summerbowl Toyota Camry? There's a good look at that 17 machine. And, of course, Anthony Alfredo with the iRacing colors on his Ford Mustang, James. Same colors we've seen on his Cup car.
Yeah, where my diecast coming? When my diecast coming? That's all I gotta say, because I'm ready.
That's some beautiful schemes, beautiful schemes, and like we mentioned earlier today, we're going to be giving away some free paint schemes to people that are on our email list. So if anyone goes to www.eragaming.gg and just sign up for our email list, we're going to be doing random giveaways. Some of the things we're giving away are some cool paint schemes, even maybe some ones like the ones you see right now on the broadcast. And we're going to be giving away even a virtual game ticket for a Cowboys game with Emmitt Smith on Notable Live, where you can hop on Notable Live and virtually watch a Cowboys game, Dallas Cowboys game, with Emmitt Smith, the all-time leading rusher in the NFL. So if you're a Cowboys fan or just an NFL fan in general, you'll get that opportunity. We're going to be giving that away to somebody on our email list, and some other things like, some free tickets to some of the Red List Series events, which are drag racing events in Southern California. So if you live in SoCal, probably be a cool opportunity for you to go watch some cool street cars race on a drag strip. And we got some other cool things that we're giving away. So go sign up for our email list by going to www.eragaming.gg.
And a ton of partners, that you've got, Jesse, to make all of this possible, and we've seen them and we've talked about them on the broadcast. I guess we'll give you this time, right? Well, we kind of wait that last shoe to drop in the strategy, and Rod on board with Josh Downing there to just talk a little bit more and kind of give you the opportunity to thank all of the people and the partners who make all of this possible.
Yeah, we have some great partners on board, especially EPM, Equity Prime Mortgage, who have jumped on board to help support these efforts in esports. They love esports. Even though they're a mortgage company and they help people get into the home of their dreams, they like esports a lot. And that's why they're on board for this event. Equity Prime Mortgage, as you can see right there below on your screen, www.epm.net. Visit them for more information on how you can get into the house of your dreams through them. They are here to help. And I love everything that they do, but big thanks to them for hopping on board and supporting our ERA events with our Omega Cup Summer Bowl here at Circuit of the Americas. A lot of great racing that we're seeing today. A lot of beautiful cars for the most part staying clean. We got some wrecked ones, got some ones spinning, but it's all part of the excitement at an ERA event.
Yeah, we were kind of worried, pre-race or kind of waiting to see, James, was there going to be a caution, or were we going to see a stack up maybe the opening lap or maybe through a pit cycle, right? If there was a big enough wreck, race control's watching. If we get a handful of cars wadded up, they will throw a full course caution, similar to what you see at a NASCAR road race, right? They'll allow some of the single car spins to go away, but if you get a couple of cars in it, we'll see a yellow. Thought that maybe that could have been a big factor tonight, but all of these drivers have done a real good job keeping this clean, keeping them on track, and has led to a great show and has allowed this strategy to play itself out.
Yeah, there are plenty of strategies that have played out. I got the sense that it was probably going to go this way, that it was going to stretch out, and it was going to be one of the cases where you'd have a lot of space because this is a long road course, this is a big road course, and you're not going to see too many drivers on top of one another if this thing gets a few good green flag laps into it. Outside of the first laps here at COTA, where you got those tight hairpins, there's not a lot of multi-pack, multi-car racing that you see. So I'm not shocked at all that we've seen a clean and green race. A few drivers going for loops around in some of these corners, but again, this is the kind of setup where you are challenging yourself by racing the racetrack, not necessarily the other drivers out there. And I would figure, Jesse, that was probably the point of the Summer Bowl, especially in comparison to, even the Spring Bowl, where you look at Daytona, and Daytona is pretty much entirely about placing yourself amongst other drivers. This is a different kind of challenge, and I think something that speaks to the depth and breadth that you're trying to hit with the Omega Cup as a whole.
Exactly. We're trying to give these drivers a different experience overall. I mean, they're used to going to different events, racing, similar, they're the same type tracks at all these different events, and we wanted to give them something different. We wanted to throw a road course on the schedule. Sometimes for some of the iRacers, maybe the road courses, especially for the guys who are used to driving these cup cars, the road courses sometimes aren't the most popular option, but for some of them, they really like testing their skills. We wanted to see them race at this beautiful track here at COTA, and we're seeing a pretty good race here. I mean, there's a lot of battles happening throughout the track. It's not just a follow the leader thing. It's not boring at all. I mean, there's a lot of excitement throughout the field, whether, it's the top three, people, 15th, 16th position, 30th position. There's battles happening all over the track, and we see a lot of beautiful paint schemes. I love this Air Force scheme we're looking at right here, the Thunderbirds. Even though I'm a Navy guy, even though I'm super high strung on the Navy, I got to respect my Air Force folks. They are out here representing, they are competing. It's pretty cool to see Air Force gaming out here, and hopefully eventually we can have Navy's esports team and the Army's esports team come out and compete in these events, and maybe we have a Battle of the Branches event occur between all the different services.
I think a Blue Angels paint scheme would look pretty good. Imagine those two ripping side by side down the front stretch, and you saw the battle there between the 24 and I think it was Lee, and you got Sturgell in the mix. We'll be checking in again with the 17 machine, Downing. I mean, so many battles throughout the field. Again, a lot of them, they're not racing side by side now, James. That's because, through the cycle of pit stops, some drivers have gotten ahead, some drivers have gotten behind. We talk about an incident for your race allows the strategy to play through. That's what you get now. It's drivers who lost time through the exchange, maybe waited a little bit longer to pit. They're now catching up. There's always the risk that, some drivers may not be able to go all the way. So there's all those different factors. And something else that we mentioned off at the top that has caught some drivers out is the incident point limit. And Justin, it sent a couple of drivers to the garage. It is not put any of our race leaders in the danger zone, but they have to stay clean to avoid that incident limit.
Yeah, some of the drivers towards the back end of the field are getting close to that mark or have already surpassed that mark at this moment. One of the drivers, Joey Lowry, the last car on track, is getting close to that mark, as well as a few others, such as Bruno Castro Alvarez is in the 11 machine, in that position. Several different competitors talked about the difficulty when it comes to driving here at this racetrack. In fact, Eric Means had described it as a sweaty car track combination, quote unquote. This has been challenging for drivers to keep themselves within the markers, and we've seen that throughout the race today.
So that much more for these drivers, even when they're on their own. You can't be cutting the course and getting a 2X here and a 2X there, a 1X if you're off track, all those different points that you do need to keep it clean. Race leaders in just a lap and a half, going to be at 10 laps to go from COTA. This race is controlled by Vicente Salas up front. We'll see if that 55 Ford can hang on. Watching some of the action in the middle of the road here for the virtual circuit of the Americas. The race lead appears to be under control by Vicente Salas. We'll see if he can manage it through the final corner, but there is a lot of positions up for grabs through the rest of the field, including the battle for 9th and 10th right now. Garrett Conrath has got it. And with Hesnell right there, wants to fight back for that position. We'll see if they can swap it back out. But Conrath just took over the number 9 spot there on this lap. It appears to have the advantage on speed and is trying to run away with this one. We'll see if the 9 car can do it. And Anthony Alfredo has been an awfully busy car tonight. You look off of his back bumper, Josh Downing right there, and then a lapped car and Devin Zimmerman. Don't count him out. I know it's not for position, but the 16 machine back there has had some speed tonight, and very different corner approaches there between the 38 and the 17. Jesse, we talked about Anthony being involved in this race with all of his NASCAR Cup Series experience, and he's also very experienced on the sim as well. Started in 32nd, didn't put down a lap time of the qualifiers, so I was prepared for a great night of him storming through the field, but he just did not get through those opening couple of laps cleanly, got held up and mixed up with some of the traffic, and he's been able to drive up to 15th, but that goes to show you that a rough start can really set you back.
Yeah, rough starts can definitely set you back, but even though he hasn't made his way all the way up front, I mean, still going from 32nd to 15th, especially in a stout field of a lot of skilled drivers, I mean, that's still tough itself. But Anthony's a really good iRacer, and he's a good racer in real life, and obviously he's racing in the Cup Series, and he's having some good runs with his team right now. He's gotten an amazing opportunity to be able to race at Cup. It's everyone's dream who jumps into any kind of racing here in the U.S. is to make it up to the NASCAR Cup Series, at least most people, and he's gotten that opportunity to do it, and he's definitely excelling and doing well, and then he does well in iRacing, but it's cool to really have him in this event. And it just goes to show that jumping into an ERA event, you don't know who you're going to be racing against. You could just be racing against regular iRacers, you could be racing against the iRacing pros, or you could be racing against NASCAR Cup Series drivers, so you never know. It's just a lot of things can happen, but it's pretty cool to have him, and big thanks to Anthony for jumping in this race and competing all night.
Yeah, Mike, that's the duality of iRacing, right? It applies to these events, and it applies to basically anything you drive on the service. You could race a nobody like myself, or you could end up at a session with the NASCAR Cup Series driver and some drivers from the top level of the eNASCAR ranks in the Coca-Cola Series.
Yeah, no, I've seen a fair few folks, and it seems like especially, we've seen some fellow named Junior go run the Legends cars, especially on the plate tracks the last weeks. I've seen a lot of
the street stocks too,
and the street stocks, yeah. But I've seen a lot of members of the iRacing community on Twitter talk about being able to race in personally one of my favorite cars in the whole of the sim. I love the Monte Carlo, I love the Thunderbird, I love the challenge that the cars from the 1980s provide. But like you said, this is one of the very few places where you can go head to head and race somebody like a Dale Jr., a Josh Berry. I've had the chance to, I would say race, but I think the more accurate term is get beat to a pulp by on track at the same time. But one of the cool, nifty little pieces of iRacing, and part of what makes the community so unique and so special. It's a leveler to the playing field in that sense.
Moved on board there with Downing, still watching how these drivers have to, manage how these cars turn and rotate into the corners, and especially at this point now, right? You're in the home stretch, 10 laps to go up at the front of the field here for these guys. The tires are going to start to fall off, similar to where they were at the end of the long run. In this group of cars specifically, you got Alfredo and Downing, both on 11-lap-old tires, and a little bit of a tire advantage for Nathan Soren down the road, but he's not really in the conversation. So that's pretty much as even as a battle as you can get between those two. Those tires are going to be pretty bare bones by the time you get to the end of the race. And, we talked about the fact that when you're in a pack and when you're racing around somebody, Jesse, you'd almost wish that you had an opportunity to breathe, right? As we check on board with a battle for third and second, and Jimmy Mullis, having served the penalty, is starting to catch the damage to Garrett Maines for P2. But on one hand, you got the guys who have always been in a battle and they kind of want to break. And then there's sometimes other guys who find themselves in no man's land, right? They may be 5 seconds behind the nearest battle and 5 seconds ahead of the next one. It might almost be harder for those guys to maintain focus. We talked about how technical this racetrack is, how if you go off track and get an incident point, you could get DQ'd if you get too many of those. So it's hard when you're racing people, and it's also hard to keep your head screwed on straight when you're on your own on a long green flag run like this. So it is really challenging no matter what situation you're in.
It's very, very challenging. And yeah, I mean, when you're battling through the field, when you're fighting all these cars, a lot of things are happening on track. You're not only, driving against the other drivers on the track, you're not only driving against the track, but you're driving against yourself. One thing we haven't really hit on is the fatigue. There's actual fatigue that's happening right now with these drivers. So as they're battling each other, they're getting close, they're trying to pass each other, they're fatigued themselves. And if you don't have that AC on in your home, if you haven't hydrated well enough at your house, you're going to be sweating pretty hard right now because there's so much going on. I know it happens for me. In my room, in my sim room, I typically always turn on the fan because it gets really warm. A lot of these drivers have some very high-powered computers, and these computers produce a lot of heat. These computers are typically right next to the driver. So it's just like being in a real-life race car where the exhaust is actually putting out a bunch of heat and making you really hot inside that race car. They're getting similar type feelings. I wouldn't say it's close. It's not 150 degrees inside the room, but it's pretty warm and you're going to be sweating. So they're fighting a lot. They're turning left and right. They're getting stressed out. So much is happening. So fatigue is definitely going to be playing an effect right now in these last 8 laps of the race.
Physical and mental. The hands are going to be sweaty, back's going to be sore, but also that mental fatigue of just making sure you stay on it. And for these two, no question, they've got it handled. These are some of the best on iRacing. And how about this drive from Mullis? Now, of course, by coming down to the pit lane, he did not stop in his box, Pike. So it's not like, he's walking all over Garrett here because he's got fresher tires, because he was down pit road just 7 laps ago. The 46 drove it straight through. So these drivers are on pretty much even tires, all things considered. And Garrett, I think, has struggled a little bit since he got that front end shunt in the 4-way battle for the race lead early in this one. But I think that's a mad Jimmy Mullis just storming his way through the field. And, I think a P2 out of this, you talk about the battle with Vicente, certainly Jimmy's going to look back on this one as a race that maybe he should have, could have won. But I think a P2 at the end will be a lot better than it could have been, and quite the comeback from that penalty if he can close this one out. He's got 7.5 laps to do it. Garrett Maines is doing a good job of defending right now, but I think Jimmy's going to want this one.
Well, I won't necessarily call this totally over. Jimmy certainly isn't catching Vicente at the rate that he needs to in order to be able to run him down entirely, but there's lap traffic, there's plenty of mistakes that could be made. This isn't totally over yet, but in the grand scheme of things, I do think you're right. If it ends up being second, might not necessarily be the worst thing in the world. So the penalty will obviously play big into his mind, but I don't think you're going to complain all that much if you are the number 46, because you're still coming away with some cash prizes at the end of the day.
Yeah, there is still a question, by the way, with Vicente being so far ahead of can he go on fuel, because he is very tight on our number. Vicente pitted 16 laps ago as we take 7 laps to go, and the math is basic enough that I am able to do this one. He needs to go 23 laps to be able to make that car go the distance. Now, the number that we heard floated around was 21, 22. So Justin's going to list it in. And, Jeff McConey, our kind of expert on the setups and the cars for McConey Setup Shop, said 22 was the magic number. So Vicente could be close. And wouldn't it be a rotten end for the 14 team to have made that decision? He wasn't forced down pit road when he came in, decided to come in at that lap number. It would be quite the late race drama, Jesse, if he can't make it. And that brings up the conversation of fuel saving. That team says they're good. How hard is it to save fuel at a road course versus an oval?
It's definitely tough to save fuel on a road course just because, there's all these different corners. So it's like, how do I attack these corners? Now, at least on an oval track, there's different things you can do. Just get on the gas just a little bit later on exit, or maybe don't drive it in as deep. There's little things you can do, and for the most part, it's real easy to figure out how to save fuel. Whereas on these road courses, I mean, you don't know exactly where you want to make those savings at, because if you make those savings in the wrong corners, you're going to lose a lot of time. If you lose a lot of time, you're going to eventually lose track position. And with where our leader's sitting at right now, I mean, he has a comfortable lead, but if he's saving a little bit too much, Jimmy Mullis, he's going to start charging forward. It looks like he just made that pass. He's now sitting, I believe, P2 after that penalty, which is absolutely amazing. He's a really good driver.
Finally made the pass, and now he will storm away from Garrett without the one machine's ability to kind of block and control that line. The 46 going to be handily in second. Some 12 seconds back from Salah. Seems like if that number 14 is good to go to the end, Justin, then Jimmy is going to need a mistake or a yellow or something. But according to his team, sounds like the race leader thinks he's good.
Yes, indeed. They feel comfortable on the gas. In fact, they're saving a little bit just in case right now for post-race, to say the very least. That's how confident they are on the gas right now. So they are saving a little bit, but they are good to go on the fuel mark.
So we're thinking 21. The experts are saying 22, James, and they're saying 23, no problem.
I mean, and look, if they've got their calculators working right and they've got those numbers down, then, I'm not going to complain, nor am I going to argue. I'll admit, I was always more of an English history person in school, not a math science person. So I am the last person that should be cross-checking any of these numbers. But,
that's why we're not on the pit box, and no one's letting us determine a race strategy for them.
and in all seriousness, I do have a great amount of respect for the crew chiefs and the car chiefs that you see, regardless of whether or not it's NASCAR, IMSA, or IndyCar, because being able to do that math well and handling all those complex variables and numbers, it's hard. And there's a reason why the good ones get paid significant amounts of money to put together those calculations, because at the end of the day, it can make the difference between you winning and you maybe finishing in 5th or 6th.
And on the sim, you do have a little bit of extra data, right? And I mean, in real life, Jess, you guys know, based on if you get it full of fuel, you're to a pretty good, specific number what the fuel is going to be like, what lap times you need to hit, in order to save this amount of fuel and to make it go this distance. On the sim, it's a little bit easier with the fact that you actually get the data, if you're a crew chief, exactly how many gallons are in the car, and you can calculate that out. So it is the exact same process, and it's the point that you touched on earlier, the fact that, like real racing, there are crew chiefs and there are spotters in this race, and certainly in the likes of the eNASCAR, Coca-Cola, iRacing series, and others that are a part of the team alongside the driver, just like in the real world.
It's pretty cool to see that they're doing that, and I remember the first time that I heard that people have crew chiefs on here, and I was like, wait, what? They have crew chiefs for what? Then I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh yeah, because you can have your own customized setups. You can have someone manipulate all the different options when you're coming onto pit road, so that you take on these set of tires, or you don't take on these sets of tires, or you do this, you do that, you fuel, or you only put this much fuel in. All that stuff. At first I used to think when I first got onto iRacing that I would just have to do all that stuff myself. I was like, how does anyone do all that stuff themselves? And then I learned about crew chiefs. I'm like, wow, people actually sit down and spend the time not driving the cars, but doing all the other stuff that the driver just doesn't need to focus on, so that the driver can have success on the track. So it's pretty cool to see that people come together as teams. This community is growing every single day. It definitely grew a lot last year through the midst of the pandemic. People started to feel like, hey, if I can't go to the real life racetrack, I'll go to the virtual racetrack. And it's been cool to kind of see how this whole thing has grown over the last couple of years.
And yeah, we always use the term that with iRacing, every day is race day, and that's not just a gimmick line. It is true. And looking at all these battles throughout the field, how about the exchange with Zach Novak? Has caught up to Austin Edwards, is trying to put the debris T machine down for 5th, side by side. They go as they'll race off and head to the second half of the racetrack right now. The 90's been better, similar to the battle that what we saw, though, for P2. That 90, the speed's going to overcome down the front straightaway with 5 laps to go. Edwards with the preferred positioning on the bottom. The 90 car's going to go much wider, and he's going to set himself up beautifully for the S's. Give position number 5 to the champ. It's Zach Novak on through in the number 90.
Oh my goodness, that was an epic pass. That is crazy. And the thing is, when you're going through these corners, especially when you're battling someone, It's not that he wanted to pass in that one particular corner. He was setting himself up to pass in another corner, and that was super, super smart of him. As I watched him do that, it's just crazy to see the strategy that these drivers have, what's going on in their mind, what they're doing to try to fight and battle throughout this entire track. It just takes a lot of strategy, not just the crew chiefs, or spotters in their ear telling them exactly what to do, but the drivers figuring out themselves, knowing, hey, I know my best opportunities at this particular corner. Let me set them up in this corner so that I can make it happen in the other corner. And the reason why you're seeing this battle for the 5th position is because there's prize money on the line. First place gets $4,000. Second place gets $500. Third place gets $250. Fourth place gets $150, and fifth place gets $100. So if you place in the top 5, you're going home with money.
And that's why Novak, who is penalized, is out here driving his way into the top 5 to get into the cash. And that's why Jimmy Mullis didn't want to throw in the towel when he was penalized and drove his way all the way back up to the number 2 position. There's an onboard look with Anthony Alfredo. In addition to all the stuff he does on the sim, he streams on Twitch a lot. There's the look left-hand side of your screen of him competing in this race live on Twitch. And, of course, encourage you to go over and check that out from the driver's perspective. Streams a lot of the iRacing content, did a lot of stuff with the next-gen car when it was released, just a week or so ago, and tons of good content that you come out of that. And Anthony's certainly one of the good guys in the sim and in the service, and great to see him get an opportunity at NASCAR's top level in that very same number 38 Ford Mustang with the iRacing colors on board that one. So so many good stories as we get down to the nitty-gritty in this race. If you're high on the incident numbers and you want to keep it below the numbers so you don't get parked and disqualified, if you're just catching somebody late in this one, if somebody's catching you, it's time to lock in. 4 laps to go the next time by in the home stretch from COTA, and it is in the hands of Vicente here. He's in control, I think, pretty much stands for his own destiny.
This is Vicente's race for sure. The question is whether or not he makes any sort of mistake, but he could really back down the pace and almost bleed maybe a second or 2 off just to make sure that you don't get in trouble. And it looks like he's doing that a little bit too. We've seen him run some quicker laps, but he's been holding steady at about the 218-ish, low 218.2s, 218.3s, which is about a second-ish off of what I had seen him run maybe about 5 or 10 laps ago, and that's just to make sure that he doesn't put himself in any sort of trouble. Of course, there's also the threshold where you can almost run too slowly and you end up cooling down the tires and lose a grip that way. So you have to push it, maybe a little bit just to make sure that you maintain some heat in your Goodyear Eagles. But for the most part, this is just be calm, be cool, be collected, navigate your way around lap traffic, and just don't put yourself in any sort of trouble. And you're not going to have too much to worry about, given that it's a nearly 14-second lead that he's got on Jimmy Mullis. I think the interesting battle worth noting, besides Zach Novak and Austin Edwards, you've also got Brandon Agenchich and Chris Reagan. Those two running in 11th and 12th, and they're only maybe about, call it 9-10 car lengths separated from one another. So even though we're coming towards the end of this race, there's still some good battles out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, tons of it. And it's tough to see, for the perspective of the drivers, how these races come together as a full race effort. And, Christopher Reagan up a spot, last car on the lead lap. He'd certainly enjoy if he could stay on the lead lap for this one. Maybe that's his goal. 5 seconds up the road from Salas. Can I maintain the lead lap? We started with 38 cars. So the fact that only 13 are on the lead lap goes to, I think, make a testament to how good those leaders are, Jesse. But is that something you do as a driver when you get in a long race like this? I talk about, somebody like a Sturgell or a Reagan saying late in this race, where do you find some motivation, right? Well, I'm going to try to stay ahead of the race leader. Or if you're in a battle for position, I'm going to try to close into this guy, 5 seconds over the next 20 laps. I mean, do you kind of try to break races down to find goals and objectives to keep yourselves motivated?
Yeah, that's always part of racing, because racing, it's a lot more different than your typical stick and ball sport. So when you look at basketball, when you look at football, you look at baseball, it's one team versus another team, and that's it. You're the only two out there. Whereas in racing, there's 40 teams out there, 40 different vehicles out there competing against each other. Only one is going to win of that 40. It's not one of two, it's one of 40. So with all those people out there, and all the battles happening, you got to figure out, okay, what's your objective for the race? In real life, teams have different budgets, so you're not always competing against every single team on the field. If your budget's a lot lower, obviously you're going to compete against people within your same budget, and your goal is to beat everyone out within your budget. Your goal is to stay on the lead lap. Your goal is to try to finish within the top 20, top 25, whatever it is. You got to find those goals and stick to them, and then try to advance a little bit more every single race. Try to get a little bit better every single race. That's all you can do, because racing is just a different beast than other sports. And on iRacing, all these cars are even. They all have the same fixed setup, but people do have different simulator rigs. Some of them have very basic rigs. Some people have very elaborate rigs. I don't think anyone in here has a controller, but you could use a controller to play this too. So a lot of different things that can affect, how someone drives a race. But at the end of the day, you got to set your own goals, be realistic about it, and go try to be the best that you can possibly be within whatever your objectives are for the race.
And you can use a lot of that to add to your experience. Sturgell is going to drop a lap down, so now Chris Reagan, the final driver in the lead lap, in position number 12. And you could add the motion rings, you could add the triple monitors, you can upgrade, your wheel and your pedals and button boxes and everything else. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the driver behind the wheel. And I've seen people succeed at the highest levels of this with the most basics of setups that drivers enter this with. So, if you're interested in getting involved in iRacing or the sim community, and you go to iRacing.com, a lot of good deals that you can get involved in to get yourself signed up at iRacing.com. You don't need to go crazy off the bat. Get yourself a wheel and run it on your home PC and see how you like it. And if you really want to immerse yourself, the opportunity is there, but don't think that you need to put $8,000 into a sim rig to be fast. If you're having fun with what you got, that's all that matters, and you can certainly do it with just about anything. As Salas now going to deal with lap traffic, and Braden Black, P18, going to drop 2 laps down, and the number 36 machine. He thanks him for staying out of the way, moving over as the number 55 drives on by. And this next time by for Vicente, going to be the white flag, and 1 lap to go, just trying to squeak this one out, and hoping that we don't have any late drop. If he gets to that white, this thing's official.
I want to roll back really quick just to the point that you made, Evan, about not needing a huge setup or fancy rig to be successful. I think, especially on the oval side, 2 great examples. We saw Timmy Hill last year in the Pro Invitational Series, won at Texas Motor Speedway with a very simple setup and a wheel that was nearly 10 years old. And then there's the famous photo from a while back of Ty Majeski, who for a long time has owned the highest oval iRating in all of the sim. He, of course, of short track fame, and one of the drivers that has managed to get himself a few opportunities in the National Touring Series. But he's raced for a long while with I think something akin to like a ThinkPad and a similarly by some accounts old wheel, to say the least. So you don't necessarily need 4 monitors or $5,000 worth of pedals and haptics and all that sort of stuff to find speed. At the end of the day, it comes down to the skill that you find as Vicente Salas takes the white flag.
And it can be used as a hobby, or it can be used for certainly the younger generation, Jesse, to get onto this, to see if they like it, right? It's always been hard to get people into racing because you can't just go down to the park and race like you would, like you shoot hoops or play baseball or whatnot. So really great way to lower that barrier of entry for younger kids to get involved and see if racing is something they're passionate about, and then maybe pursue going racing at their local track.
Exactly, and that's the great way to do it, is to jump on to sim racing. And pretty soon we're going to have a store on eragaming.gg. That store will be able to provide people with an opportunity to purchase some sim racing gear, whether it's wheels, pedals, cockpits, you name it, all that stuff. We're going to have all different kind of options, whether it's inexpensive options, super expensive options. We're going to have it all on there to give people opportunity to jump on and feel like a real race car driver driving here on iRacing and eventually driving in our ERA events.
One more long trip down the back straightaway for Vicente Salas. The racetrack is clear up the road. Christopher Reagan in P12. Looks like he's going to hang on to this one. Clear track, good news, Mike.
Nothing much to worry about if you are Vicente Salas, who is going to get it done 2 months in a row for Space Station Gaming. Got the victory in the Coke Series at Richmond. Now looks set to pick up the Equity Prime Mortgage ERA Omega Cup Summerbowl from Circuit of the Americas. I wonder if he's going to start rattling off a streak here across the sim. Who knows?
That he's a fan of the road races that I mentioned earlier. There is a couple of those coming up on the calendar for the rest of this eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series regular season. So maybe Vicente issued a challenge here that he's going to be somebody to watch both here in these ERA races and on Tuesday nights for the big show. Final set of corners. Left-hander, turn number 19. Left-hander, turn number 20. And then the run down to the start-finish line. He started this race second, stormed to the race lead early, was mistake-free through the pit cycle, and that was the key. Stretches it 23 laps to the end. Vicente Salas, winner at COTA for the Omega Cup Summer Bowl.
Absolutely epic. Big congrats to Vicente. That was an awesome drive by him. Keeping it clean, staying competitive the entire race, keeping it smart. You know, when others made mistakes, pit road penalties, whatever, all that stuff, he kept it smart the entire race, ran a good race, and now he is going to be awarded $4,000 cash. $4,000 going to him. He can use it for whatever he wants, whether he wants to upgrade his sim, go buy a car, wherever he wants to use it for. $4,000 is going to him. Second place is getting $500 and so on. But everyone in the top 5 is walking away with money tonight for playing a sim. We're playing a sim racing game. I mean, that's it. You know, they didn't have to go race in real life.
Not bad for a day at the office, and Vicente joins the likes of Sturgell, a race winner from the Spring Bowl, Retzlaff, the winner of the inaugural one back in December for the Winter Bowl at the fairgrounds, and saw that great battle of the line as well. Mullis comfortably in second, but Oisin Walsh did everything he could to get Garrett Maines at the end of this one. Wasn't able to do so. So Maines comes home third, Walsh is fourth, and Novak does recover to get into the money for position number 5. And final couple of drivers trying to bring it around. Christopher Reagan, the number 31 machine, the last car on the lead lap in the running order right now, going to bring his way through for P12 and put a bookend on this one. You got the 24 machine as well coming through the final set of corners. So a handful of drivers. Goes to show you how long a lap is here at Circuit of the Americas. I wonder if Vicente is going to have enough fuel to bring it all the way around or do some burnouts before this one is said and done. But final couple of corners pushing this one through. And I would say, James, hats off to Reagan and all these guys for staying on the lead lap with some of the top talent on the sim. A grueling, long 40-lap green flag race like this. Certainly tip of the hat to them for fighting through this one and sticking with it.
It's tough. I think a lot of people don't recognize it, especially those who run the oval races consistently on the surface. I don't think you recognize that even though these road course races tend to happen in a smaller time frame, you end up giving yourself much more of a mental workout, I think, because it's not necessarily just one press of the gas and then one mash of the brake. It's back on the gas, back on the brake, turning the wheel, counter steering, doing all these things that we saw really well with the in-car shots over the course of this race, and you can be really worn out in a span of 40 laps the way it would take maybe 3 or 4 hours on an oval to hit the same level of tiredness. So credit to the drivers for finishing up this race and sticking it out for all 40 laps or however many they were managed to compete.
Let's take a look at your full race results tonight from COTA, brought to you by Equity Prime Mortgage. Had mentioned the top 5. Vicente Salas, of course, the 3rd different race winner on one of these Omega Cup races, and 3 different ones joining Retzlaff and Sturgell as race winners here in these races. Of course, second place, Mullis, Garrett Maines, Oisin Walsh, and Zach Novak, the top 5. Trying to get a word with as many of those guys as possible here in the post-race show. Austin Edwards just misses out on that with a P6 finish in this one, and Cody Harris in 7th position. Garrett Conrath comes home P8. Bob Eldred is 9th. It is Guy Hesno who comes home running at the top 10.
Brandon Gadgets for Air Force Gaming gets it done. He comes home in the 11th spot. Christopher Reagan was 12th at the end of the night. Matthew Lee brought it home in 14th. And Michael Sturgell couldn't quite back up his performance in the Spring Bowl, but still a solid finish for him. Anthony Alfredo started without setting a qualifying time, and at the end of this race, gained more spots than just about anybody in this field. 32nd to 15th at the end of it. Another Air Force Gaming driver, Chris Walson, 16th. Nathan Soren came home in the 17th spot, and then it was Christopher Matthews, Braden Black, and Nicholas Brand that completed the top 20.
rest of these drivers still in the mix. A couple of laps down, you got Blanchard, Castro Alves, Lowry, Downing, and Goodman. And I think maybe Zimmerman is where you draw the line for the drivers that are able to make it to the end of this one. A couple of the cars towards the back got caught by that incident count. Could include Joshua King in 27th, but John Lehoff in 28th, Randy Huffby 29, and then Robert McMillan Jr. in 30th.
31st went to Johnny Taylor. Johnny Fair was 32nd. Devin Stark and Rhett Tucker 33rd and 34th at the end of the night. Lee Ryerson was 35th this evening. 36th went to Farrison Bachman. Aaron Smith, Michael Gallagher, and Jocelyn Washington. Your 39-car field this evening.
And to answer the question, Vicente did have enough fuel to burn it down just for a moment on the front straightaway. Let's go trackside and talk with your race winner from Circuit of the Americas. Vicente, congratulations on this one. You start up in the number 2 spot. You put the pressure to Jimmy early, and in that first half of the race, you guys were training it back and forth quite a good bit.
Yeah, it was honestly a really great race between me and Jimmy. I had a blast. I think it was unfortunate what happened in the pit road, but I guess if you follow the rules, good things will happen.
And of course, you get to that pit stop. You end up going 23 laps to the end of the race, second most out of anybody. And we were kind of curious. We had been told 22 was the number. Was it a little bit shorter than that? Were you going to be able to go a little bit longer? Talk us through the idea being so close to Jimmy at that midway point to come down pit road first.
I think really the mindset behind it was just kind of hopping him and giving us the space to save our tires and see if he would get back to us. We were ready to battle if he got back to us, but I think at the end there we had about half a lap or a lap of fuel left. So I ran out on the front stretch doing burnouts.
I said you had just enough to do them for a little bit. What's it like for you to come into an event like this? You really don't know who you're going to be racing against, and it's no shock that you end up with guys like Jimmy and Zach and some of the other top guys on the service. To be able to do a fun event like this and also walking away the winner with $4,000 doesn't have to hurt.
Yeah, honestly, it was really fun. I think all the ERA staff, you guys putting on the broadcast, the race directors in the lobby, I think everybody did a fantastic job. Would 10 out of 10 recommend.
I got to ask you, is this maybe a preview of what we'll get next Tuesday night? There's a lot of road races coming up on the Coke side of things. Are you kind of throwing the gauntlet here?
I would honestly hope so. All the guys back at the team have been working really hard on the car. We've been putting in a lot of laps, so I think we just got to do what we did today, capitalize on the opportunities given, and make it happen.
We seal the names on that number 55 for Vicente. Who makes it happen for you?
Honestly, I got to thank Space Station Gaming, Steel Series, Champion Esports, all the guys back that helped me at Elliott Sadler Esports, Brendan Kohler for being on my box, and you guys for putting on the show.
Appreciate you sticking around and chatting with us after this long one, man. Congratulations, and maybe I'll be talking with you next week.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
It's your race winner tonight from COTA in this ERA Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summerbowl. Vicente Salas starts second, leads the most laps, and wins here from COTA. We'll continue things on down the line, and Jesse, I'll hand things back over to you, talking with second place finisher tonight, Jimmy Mullis.
Mr. Jimmy Mullis, great drive, coming back from that penalty. I know that penalty definitely wasn't something that you wanted to see at all. I know you were probably kicking yourself like, what the heck? But you know what? You fought back. You made it back to P2, and guess what? You're not going home empty-handed. You're still going home with $500 cash. How did it feel today?
It feels great to, be able to come back from a penalty and still get a strong finish. But I will say there's definitely nothing more painful than beating yourself in a race like this. But it was a lot of fun, the whole time racing with Vicente and, Garrett there at the end. Just really unfortunate. I'm looking at it. It's definitely my fault. So it's painful to lose it that way, like I said, but all in all, I had a really good time and, really appreciate the opportunity to compete in events like this.
You're definitely one of the strongest drivers out there. I mean, you qualified up front. You were up front running the entire time. And yeah, I know you're probably kicking yourself, but man, we were watching you the whole time. You great driver. I mean, even during the heat race, we watched you the whole time. You were out there just killing it. So great job. You fighting back, getting up to P2 again. You're looking forward to your upcoming Coca-Cola race.
Oh, absolutely. I think tonight kind of just influence what'll happen Tuesday for me. Like just being confident, going in, knowing that I do have good pace at this track. I've never raced here actually until this event. Obviously, I've been putting on a lot of work for the Coke Series race, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. And hopefully I can be just as strong there, and see what happens.
That is crazy. Never raced here, then coming out here and just destroying the field. I wish I was as good as you on iRacing.
Yeah, I've been doing it a long time, putting a lot of laps in just for the Coke race. So to, get an event like this where we're all in the same setup, it's definitely an advantage just, having the reps going in.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on finishing P2. You got $500 that's going to be coming your way. So take it, do whatever you want with it. But thanks for jumping in and competing in our EPM Omega Cup Series Summerbowl. It was exciting to watch you race, and hopefully we can have you at more events the rest of this year.
Yep, thank you.
It's your second place finisher in this one. Jimmy Mullis coming home with the number 2 spot. Final margin of 14.5 seconds. But again, the story there, the penalty on pit road that separated him from Vicente. And we'll continue on down the running order to our third place finisher. James, standing by with Garrett Maines.
Garrett Maines being interviewed after a podium finish on another Podium Esports broadcast. Stop me if I've heard that one before. So your magic continues, I guess, this time in the Equity Prime Mortgage eRacing Association Omega Cup Summerbowl. But Garrett, your race I felt like panned out a little bit differently compared to Jimmy's and Vicente's, because you were just absolutely in the biggest battle with David Walsh and that Tato machine pretty much all race long. So the back and forth between you two, how was that, and how did that change over the course of these 40 laps?
Well, I'm looking at the back of my car right now, or the front of my car, and really wondering why I didn't take the fast repair. I didn't know it was that much damage. It probably would have made a difference. I was very surprised that his strategy didn't work out for him, because I was throwing. Once Jimmy got by me, I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was trying to push for lap times, and I don't know if the damage was actually hurting me enough to make me have a false sense of being slow, but I felt like I was just pushing the rear tires right off of it, and I was slipping into his grasp there at the end. But I think I kind of settled in with a couple laps to go and put together some clean laps, held on to that third place finish. We were having a really good battle. I was surprised he even peeled off for the 2-stop. I thought he'd stay on my strategy, but it was a heck of a race.
Wild race, a great battle, and ultimately, as has been the theme with our other 2 podium finishers, great preparation for the Coke Series race coming up next Tuesday night. How much does this track time in particular help you? How much do you feel like it gives you an advantage over the rest of the Coke Series drivers, because you've had the chance to run here in race conditions that'll be pretty similar to what you tackle next week?
Well, I can tell you, it definitely helped my confidence a little bit, because there on the first run, Jimmy's one of the best on the road courses, and I know Vicente's always hauling the mail. So to be in the ballpark there, and to be battling as well during that first run, definitely was good, and it was good practice to be able to be up near people and following behind them through the S's and stuff like that. Just it's muscle memory going through those parts of the track. You can't see them when you're right behind somebody, but it was definitely good to get that experience. This is probably a lot of our first times on this course in the Cup cars, and probably my second time on the course, period. So definitely, much needed track time, and glad I was able to be a part of it.
And at the end of the day, you're coming away with $250 for your third place finish. So nothing too shabby. I suppose at the end of the day, we got maybe a few upgrades on the rig that you might be able to use that money for.
I'm starting to wonder if I'm maxed out, but I think that'll go towards my my new button box. I went ahead and got magnetic paddle shifters, so I don't double shift on my way down with the springs. So that's my last thing. New wheel from SimSeats, pretty nice.
There's always something, but it's especially at the top level, those sorts of details really do make the difference. And I think that's something that some folks tend to forget, how just intense your setups can be when you're racing in the Coke Series, no?
Yeah, absolutely. You asked the question, and I impulsively thought, yeah, I'm probably good, but there's always that that one gripe that you have that you can get the next most precise thing that'll, that 1% of the time that you might make a mistake because of your equipment, you can, always be looking to make those upgrades. So that's my latest one, and I'm definitely happy with it, because I had some weird tendency of double shifting on my way down into second, and that's just rest faster.
Ever the perfectionist you are, Garrett, but also part of the reason why you're one of the best of the best and one of the Coke Series drivers for 2021. Who do you need to thank for making tonight's run possible?
Yeah, I got to thank Offerpad, Smithfield, Linux, all the guys at Elliott Sadler Esports. Just huge shout out to Vicente for showing me around this track for about a week now. It was a bit of a change on this track temp and with this setup, but I think it was definitely much needed practice in race conditions, and looking forward to the Coke Series next week. I think all this experience will be definitely helpful.
We've seen him be successful in road courses and stock cars before on Podium Esports. Does it again tonight. Garrett Maines with a P3 finish. Congratulations on your podium run tonight, Garrett. We'll see you next week right back here at COTA.
Thank you, and appreciate you guys putting it on.
It's Garrett Maines, driver of the number 2 Offerpad Toyota Camry for Elliott Sadler Esports. Leaves us with one more person to talk to. You may or may not have heard of him. Might know him as Fast Pasta or Pasta Sauce. I've heard Bechamel Boy also in the mix. But in either case, here's Jesse Woozy with Anthony Alfredo.
Hey, Anthony, how's it going? How do you feel today on this track? I saw you making your way through the field. I think you passed more cars than anybody in this race today.
Yeah, I started about dead last, was able to get a top 15 out of it, so definitely passed, I think, close to 20 cars at least. Unfortunately, didn't get a lap in qualifying because on my first one, I went off track, so I reset and tried to get a new one in. I didn't want the tires to be too hot. And I messed up on that one in the final corner, and I was tracking what would have been probably 8th or 9th place in qualifying. There was a lot of guys way faster than me, but I think I definitely could have had a top 10 day if I could have started up there. But to rebound from where I started, definitely happy about that. Just tried to keep it on the track as best I could and stay out of trouble. So it was pretty long, but I learned a lot and got way better as the race went on. So it was a great time, and I was happy to be a part of it.
You definitely drove great throughout the race, wasn't making mistakes. You drove through the field, and yeah, it definitely felt like a long race. It's only 40 laps, but probably to you, you're probably thinking, man, this is like a stint or two in a cup race.
Definitely. It was, the cup race is going to be 68 laps, and that was 45, so 23 laps longer, which is crazy because that right there felt like a long time to me, especially since it was green flag without any stage breaks. But I almost forgot that on lap 1 going into turn 1, they all stacked up in front of me. I yanked the wheel hard left to not pile drive the guys in front of me, and I drove across the nose of the guy inside of me, and I literally went sideways and slid all the way up into turn 1 and clobbered someone in the middle of the corner. I feel awful about that, but I was just hanging on for dear life because it was bad back there. I should have just lagged back a lot and gave plenty of room, and I tried to give room, but I just caught those guys so fast getting into 1, and there's nowhere to go. So that little spin there got me behind, and so did the damage from it. But we took our fast repair on that green flag stop and made the most of our day. But like you said, it was not even as long as a cup race, and it felt pretty long, but it was definitely good reps and get me mentally prepared for the cup race as far as being able to focus for that length of time, especially after a couple mishaps and whatnot.
Yeah, most definitely. And you're right about turn 1 on lap 1. Going into turn 1, especially for the cup race that you're going to be running in, it's going to be very similar, where a lot of people are going to be stacking up, and for everybody, it's going to be their first time ever in history where 40 cup cars are going into turn 1 at COTA. So a lot can happen. I know you remember what was happening between the Xfinity races and cup races at Charlotte when they did the Roval. Same similar situation where everyone was screwing up turn 1. So you getting these laps today, I'm sure that was pretty helpful for you.
I think turn 1's going to be the exciting spot, to say the least, especially on all the restarts and the initial start of the race. It's plenty wide to go 4 or 5 wide into turn 1, and watching some sports car stuff there, they do that a lot, and you never know what could happen. It's just to some guys it looks like an opportunity to gain free spots, right? Restarts are always an opportunity to do that, so it's going to get pretty wild. It's going to be hectic. Hopefully not too much calamity or chaos, but I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Well, good luck in the race. Should be fun. And thank you so much for jumping in and competing in our ERA EPM Mega Cup Series Summerbowl this year. So it was fun seeing you out there racing, and you did a pretty good job. So thanks for jumping in.
Of course, thanks for letting me race, and thanks to everyone behind the scenes. Of course, you, Jesse, ERA, Podium. It was a pleasure to compete, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the events throughout the year.
All right, have a good night. Thanks, Anthony.
As a chat with Anthony Alfredo, got to talk with him pre-race that is able to go up plus 17 positions to finish into 15th. That makes him the second biggest mover of the evening, bested only by Matthew Lee, who went from 35th to 13th over the course of this one. And so ends another ERA special event. This time the Summerbowl is in our back pocket, and what a fun night of racing from COTA. We had some drama on the racetrack, drama from the race control. We had everything that you would see in real life, and I think at the end of the day, Vicente Salas certainly earns a good victory in this one. And Jesse, I'll jump to you first on this one, just to give your thoughts on the race. And again, just an opportunity to thank all the people for making this possible, and for those who maybe tuned in and enjoyed the show and wants to get involved, how they get in on this next time.
Most definitely want to give a big shout out to everyone who tuned in today on all the different channels, on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube, wherever you watched it at. Thank you so much for watching the event, and hopefully we got some fans to maybe hopefully convert into ERA members. If you want to become an ERA member, if you want to compete in these events, go to our website. Go to www.eragaming.gg. Head to our website. Register to become a member. If, let's say, you're still trying to feel it out, you still just want to know what's going on and stay informed, just go sign up for our email list, and we're going to be doing some giveaways to all the folks who are on that list. So just sign up. You can receive some information from us. I promise we will not spam you. I hate spam, so we will not spam you. And a big thanks to our sponsor for this event, for our Omega Cup Series Summerbowl, EPM, Equity Prime Mortgage. Go visit their website if you're in you search for a new home, new house, and you need a mortgage. Hit those guys up. They have a lot of great stuff going on, and they're huge supporters of esports. So if you're watching this, I'm sure you love esports, you love sim racing. These guys, they love it too. So thank you so much, EPM, for jumping on board and supporting our Omega Cup Series Summerbowl this year.
Well, and fun to be a part of it at our end of things as well, James. And we've seen so many different things, right, over the course of where this all started. Last winter, racing down a short track at the Nashville Fairgrounds, going to a big track earlier this year at Daytona International Speedway, and now at a purpose-built F1 circuit at COTA, all in these NASCAR Cup Series cars. Three very different challenges. No shock that it brings the top talent into sim every single time, and three different race winners now in all of these ERA events. And I think just from a sim racing standpoint alone, a great event to be a part of, seeing all these top guys go at it.
I love the mix of challenges that ERA provides. I love the different ways that they tie into the community, especially given when they run. You know, with Nashville, it was all about getting a big event to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway in that capacity for this time. Daytona, obviously, you get swept in with Speed Weeks. And this ties into everything that we're going to see at the virtual circuit of the Americas over the next week. And if we look forward just beyond this event, cool that Vicente Salas gets to come back with $5,000. That's pretty awesome. But I look to next Tuesday, and for as much as we figure that it's, you know, probably going to be Bobby Zelensky and probably going to be Mitchell DeYoung that are going to be in competition for the victory, we might have to put a pretty big eye on Vicente Salas, because after what we saw of him tonight, he may be more of a factor than I think a lot of us initially suspected, as will be Jimmy Wallace, as will be Garrett Manning, as you would figure Zach Novak would be as well. We got to see a little bit of their hands now. We'll see just how much more they find and how much more they bring to it next week. But my big question, and I don't know if he's got license or liberty to tell us, but I want to know what's coming up next for ERA. I want to know where our next bowl is headed. I want to know what the next big event is going to be. Jesse, do you think we might be able to find out a little bit more on that, perhaps?
Yeah, most definitely. So our next event will be our Fall Bowl. So basically what we do is we have 4 big events a year. We have the Spring Bowl, the Summer Bowl, Fall Bowl, and Winter Bowl. So the Fall Bowl, the aim is to do Bristol. So that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're going to try to compete at. Who knows if it might change between now and then, but I think the aim is going to be Bristol. It's a very fun track. We're going to do it on the asphalt side, not the dirt side, but it should be pretty fun, should be pretty interesting, and we're aiming to do that sometime in the early fall, late summer, I would say, probably around September. We'll let everyone know. If anyone wants to stay informed on when we're going to do the events, make sure you follow us on all of our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all that stuff, Twitter. We put out information on all of that. And also just go onto our website and sign up for our email list, and we'll be sending out information when we're ready for those events. But all the competitors who are competing today, they all know exactly how to get the information. They've been members for a while, and they receive all the information from us. But head to our website, and we have all the information there, and we'll continue to put on these events and more. Eventually, we want to grow this thing where we can put on even more, but it's going to take the support of our fans to continue to watch, to continue to share, continue to be supportive, and let's build this community so that we can continue to build sim racing around the world.
I'm ready. Who doesn't love a short track trip to Bristol, right? So that could be fun coming up. But again, eragaming.gg for more information on that one. And Jesse, certainly want to wish you best of luck coming up. Hope to see you get back into the Pro Invitational Series and get a crack at the car yourself here for the virtual COTA. Fortunately, for all of you tuning in, you don't have to wait until the Fall Brawl and the Fall Bowl for more information and more racing here on Podium Esports, because we've got a ton of action coming up this week and every week here on a Podium. Of course, we're back at it on Friday for the next installment of Next Gen Fast Fridays as we take the Next Gen NASCAR Cup cars to the Charlotte Roval. That's at twitch.tv/Podium Esports, a 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time start this Friday. And then look over to Sunday. The MPI Cup Series continues for round 17 from the Iowa Speedway back here on Podium at 9:15. Then Monday Night Racing takes the trucks to Bristol Dirt. We talk about some wild combos. That's going to be a good one at twitch.tv/Podium2. It's an 8 o'clock Eastern Time start. And then a preview maybe from tonight, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series heads here to Circuit of the Americas. That's May 18th. Pre-race show starts with Countdown to Green at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/iRacing. Then the following day, a double dose for you. The PCA Sim Racing heads to Brands Hatch for round number 6. That's at 8 o'clock start at youtube.com/PCA Sim Racing. And then the Dirt Sprint Car Championship Series is at Kokomo. Same night, the 19th, 9 o'clock Eastern start. That one's going to be over on Podium 2 here on Twitch. But until next time, that is going to do it for us here tonight from the virtual Circuit of the Americas. So for the entire team downstairs, the eRacing Association group of Matt Casto and Sean Yoder, from William Hale and Brandon Davis at Work and Race Control tonight, Gary Saxton, Cisco Scaramuza, John Theodore at Podium Esports, and everybody involved in making tonight's show so good. That includes our producer downstairs, Ryan DeBauer, Justin Prince on pit road, and for my colleagues up top, for James Pike and Jesse Wuji, and myself, Evan Pasoko. I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Vicente Salas, who is the Equity Prime Mortgage Omega Cup Summer Bowl champion. Thanks for tuning in, and we look to have you next time with us on Podium Esports. We'll catch you Friday night for Next Gen Fast Fridays from the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Until next time, good night from Austin.
The EPM mission reads that we are a resource and voice for financial empowerment. The EPM vision, which is connected to the EPM way, is to continue to offer financial service, communication, and assistance to the communities we serve.
What makes us different is our loan officers. They care about the people. Our number one message in this company is the customer. Always do everything you can for that customer.
We as a staff work together as a team, and we also on one page, one goal, to know that the end goal is the other person, which is the home buyer.
The big thing that we want to do is provide financial empowerment to our consumers. The ramifications of not owning versus owning is very vast. So it's really about maximizing your earning potential to build wealth.
Our diversity, it's a large part of what sets us apart. And the way we look at business with an empathic approach, we do care.
I have grown up here. I've pretty much done almost every position here and have just grown and learned throughout the 10 years and been given tons of opportunity to advance. I can't tell you how much this place means to me.
My favorite part of EPM is the relationships that we build. I mean, I see my coworkers more than I even see my family throughout the week. So it's important that we have that relationship with each other. I know that I'm going to work hard with my coworkers, but I also know that I'm going to be able to have a fun time with them.
When you join EPM, it's like you're gaining a huge, giant family. The people here are just funny and amazing.
The 23 fundamentals, or the EPM way, is our new culture plan. They are led by great communication, ethics, morals. All in all, they make us better. They make us EPM. The idea of work and home is truly been blurred. So when our culture plan was created, we wanted to transcend just being in the office.
It's really about being a brotherhood, a sisterhood, but it's still all about one mission and one objective, is to make sure that we're not only leading to financial empowerment, but we're growing our communities, we're serving our communities, we're growing our individuals.
Most of the loans we're doing are for families. It's the biggest investment in their lives.
For me to know that every little part that goes into the end goal of home ownership makes a difference, and we're playing a big part of that for that prospective home buyer to have their future home.
There's certain programs that not every lender offers, and we try to offer as many of those programs as possible so anybody could kind of fit the mold with a program that we have and offer that to them, so then they could get that purchase done and own a home.
You know, the gold standard is treat somebody how you would want to be treated. I think that's the way people would want to be treated best. They want to make sure that somebody's looking out for their best interest, not yours, not the company, not the industry. So you definitely got to put yourself in their shoes and empathize and make sure you're looking and more importantly, listening very, very generously to what they're saying and what they're trying to accomplish.
It feels amazing to know that my team and I were able to contribute to a prospective buyer having their home. And for that home buyer to finally walk into the doors and have their home is just amazing, and we contributed to that.
It gives you a sense of pride in what we're doing here and gratitude to be able to help out those people get things and achieve their goals as well.
A lot of people talk about care, and the only way to truly care is through showing action and showing what you're doing for them in that moment.
We're able to help people to achieve the American dream, which is home ownership. But it's not just home ownership. That's your home. That's your family. So generations can be there just by one impactful movement that we do.